Good evening. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees are now convened in the regular board meeting on Monday, May 10th, 2021, in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center, located at 10,300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 6 p.m. I want to welcome the members of our audience and our television viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports from the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on Comcast Channel 16 and the district website. They will be available as video on demand on the district website following tonight's meeting. For the video to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. Please do that with your phone. I just did. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. At this time, we usually recognize our Community Leadership Committee. We have one person, Mr. Ryan Irving. Ryan, appreciate you being here tonight. The Community Leadership Committee meets once a month, and they learn more and more about the district and how it works. I would also like at this time to recognize the Boy Scouts, but I don't believe we have any here with us tonight. The invocation for tonight's board meeting will be given by Brian Offit, Senior Pastor of West Houston Church of Christ since 2014. Brian has been in ministry for 30 years and married to his wife, Melanie, for 29 years. Melanie has taught art at Cy Ranch High School since 2014. Brian and Melanie have 3 children, Nathan, Noah, and Hannah. Noah and Hannah are graduates of Cy Ranch High School. West Houston Church of Christ works closely with Burks Elementary School to support and encourage their role in our community. Brian, we definitely appreciate your ongoing commitment to our district, and thank you for being here tonight. Before the invocation, I would like to introduce the Cypress Falls High School AFJROTC cadets who will be presenting the colors this evening. On U.S. flag, Cadet Jessica Valaquez. On Texas flag, Cadet George Musa. On U.S. Guard and Cadet Ivan Coronado. And Texas Guard Cadet Charisma Achives. These cadets present the colors to you under the direction of Herman J. Broussard, Jr., Master Sergeant, retired United States Air Force. Before they present the colors, please stand for the invocation.
Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Father, we praise you and glorify you as creator of heaven and earth. And you are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And Lord, you hold all things together, and we honor you here tonight. God, we thank you for the Cy-Fair ISD and the families represented in this great district, Lord. God, we're especially grateful for all of the teachers and coaches and administrators and all of the support staff that serve our campuses, Lord. God, we pray that you would continue to bless them and strengthen them as they have all worked so hard and tirelessly to serve our children so well in this difficult season, Father. God, we are mindful of all of the police officers and their staff, the men and women who serve and protect and who work to protect the safety of our students and the staff on all of our campuses. Lord, we ask that you would bless them, and we're just so thankful for them and their service to this district. God, we're also thankful for all of our school nurses and the way that they have loved and nurtured and cared for all of our children, Lord. God, may you continue to bless them in their work. They are such a blessing to our children and our families. God, we say a special prayer tonight for all of those seniors, those that are getting ready to graduate from this district, Lord. God, we ask that you would bless them in their endeavors that will follow upon their graduation. Keep them safe, God, and help them to make wise choices in this season of celebration. And finally, Lord, we're thankful for the men and women who serve as the Board of Trustees for our district. God, thank you for their service. We continue to lift up Dr. Henry. We're so thankful for him and his leadership during this last year, Lord. God, we pray that you would give all of these men and women wisdom and discernment as they continue to lead in this important role in our community. God, we love you, Lord, and we offer this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Kara Reed, colors. Forward, arch. Color guard, hold. Left face. Present arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Right, face. Forward, march.
You may be seated. Board Member Gilbert Sarabia will read the district's vision and mission statement for the benefit of the audience. Mr. Sarabia?
Yes, our vision at CFISD is formed from the acronym LEAD: to learn, empower, achieve, dream, lead. Our mission is to maximize every student's potential through rigorous and relevant learning experiences, preparing students to be 21st century global leaders.
Thank you, Ms. Sarabia. We'll now proceed with the recognition portion of the agenda. Superintendent will make remarks and announcements, including honors and achievements earned by staff and students in recent weeks. Dr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Covey, and we'll have a lot more in June. We've had a really busy past couple of weeks, and we don't have all of these in my comments today. And then, of course, we've got several teams still in the baseball, softball playoffs. The Jersey Village High School boys soccer team concluded a history-making season on April 13th in the state semifinals, losing narrowly to the eventual state champion San Antonio Lee. The Falcons were the first CFISD soccer representatives to ever advance to the state tournament. CFISD hosted a successful state wrestling tournament April 23rd and 24th at the Berry Center, finishing with 3 female wrestlers in the top 2 in the state. Cypress Ranch's Jaden Bazemore was the state champion in the 128-pound bracket. Langham Creek's Timatayo Sanusi was runner-up in the 148-pound bracket. And Cypress Ridge's Melanie Ourvidas was runner-up in the 215-pound bracket. CFISD athletes completed their season in the UIL track and field meet on May 8th in Austin. Congratulations to Cy Ridge High School's 800-meter relay team of Aaron Moore, Mark Benjamin, Jalen Madden, and Robert Griffin. which placed second and set a new school and district record with a time of 1:24.27. Congratulations to the Cypress Woods High School UIL State Academics team, which placed second in the state in Class 6A with 97 points. For a little aside, they were the defending state champions, so in the past two academic meets, they finished with a gold and a silver, which is really amazing. They were just 14 points out of first place. The Wildcats earned first place awards in the computer science and current events team events. And senior Ezeki Gerbuz placed first in computer science among individual contestants. Congratulations to all of our students. Mr. President.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the public comments portion of the agenda. Patrons who have duly registered for policy BED local may address the board and make comments on an agenda item during or before the board's consideration of the item. The board may allow public comment or agenda items at all meetings. The board will continue with the remaining agenda after the registered patrons have had an opportunity to speak. We do have some people signed up, and we will start with Danielle Cockrell. Danielle, when you come up here to the podium, there is a light, and Ms. Blackshear, come on up. I'm sorry. Ms. Blackshear will turn it on. You will have 2 minutes total, and 30 seconds before the end, you will see the yellow light come on, and then when the red light comes on, please sum up, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. It's all yours.
All right. Thank you for the board for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I have taught in Cy-Fair for 10 years with 16 years overall education. This has been the most stressful year. I was eager to get back in the classroom with very little instruction on how this year was to run. But we went to work, teaching online, and Zoom at the same time. So just to let you know, after teaching, the bell rings. You jump up, you turn off one Zoom, you spray down the desk, open the door, and you let other students in. Zoom. And it's just extremely stressful. Never forgetting to allow students in that come in late to class, interrupting instruction. You do this. Regularly, students would switch from in-person to online due to COVID-related issues. So I began to ask, what about me? I received my COVID vaccine through a part-time job that I hold to supplement my income long before my coworkers. So what about me? Does Cy-Fair care about me? We just celebrated Teacher Appreciation. We were presented with a video as a thank you. We deserve to be compensated for going above and beyond during this stressful time. Health has suffered. Education, we've tried time and time again to get students to be present in Zoom, online to get work. And we do it, we get up every morning and we go in, we put our smile on. And we just ask the district to recognize what we're doing and compensate us under the COVID to retain teachers, because this is the first year I've ever seen so many teachers retiring and leaving education. That is not what I want to do. I would like to stay here and continue teaching. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward McIntosh. You can come up to this one over here. That's fine.
Whatever. Hi, my name is Edward McIntosh. I'm a Cy-Fair employee. I'd like to talk to you about pay raises. A little history. I've had two great uncles sit on the board, Tom Helmsley and Jack Emmett. Jack Emmett's the one I know the best. And Uncle Jack told me when 21 years on the board, he spent time making sure teacher raises was a priority. I teach in the CATE department, and I'm proud that Cy-Fair is pouring so much energy into the CATE department. We are trying to get students out the door and into the industry. Cy-Fair is doing a great job keeping up with the preparation of these students as we advance them into the industry. But when these students graduate with certifications that I give them and they go into the industry, they are earning more money on their first year than I do. And it makes me wonder, why am I in the teaching and not just go into the industry? We need to attract people from the industry to teach our kids so they can be at the same level. But with the pay raise different, it's hard to get adequate teachers. I would also like to address the insurance part. If you have a medium insurance, our policies are $800 to $1,000. That's a house note for some people. First-year teachers in this district earn $55,000. If they pay the deductible and the premiums, they're at $34,000 take home. The district has added additional days this year and a lot more responsibilities. $43,000 is just not enough for a first-year teacher. Is that my time?
No, you got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. I just want to add that we are only as good as our teachers and our facilities, no matter how nice they are and the technology we give out. We need to have dedicated and high-quality teachers to make sure we have success in the classroom. And I'll go ahead and end. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Last one is Nikki Cowart. Nikki, you want to, come up to that one.
I lucked out and went to the right spot this time. Good evening, Dr. Henry and trusted Cypher-ISD school board members. So much has happened since the board met in April, many good things. More in our community have been able to get a vaccine if they so chose to, due largely in part to you all making that a convenient possibility. Families have been able to celebrate college graduations and Mother's Day gatherings, and last week we collectively celebrated Teacher, Nurse, and Public Employee Appreciation Week. Cyfair AFT Union kicked off a project in our efforts to show our appreciation for our experienced teachers, administrators, and staff. We've also been advocating for a 4% pay raise and a retention stipend of $1,000. I said it last month, and I'll repeat it this month again. We believe we must respect, recognize, reinvest, and retain our hardworking educators. Teachers and school staff are still heroes. Remember how they were all referred to as heroes this time last year? And yet so many do feel used and exhausted and simply unheard now. But educators shape the future in this country. They are certainly not morally corrupt or cowards. Frankly, it was appalling to hear one of our very own Cyfair area lawmakers make those remarks during the Senate Education Committee hearing last week. I stopped dead in my tracks and I looked up the very definition of coward. A person who lacks the courage to do or to endure dangerous or unpleasant things. There's not a single bus driver, food service worker, administrator, or classroom teacher that would fall into that category that I know. I know it, and you all know it. We ask that the board do all that they can to give a real pay raise to our Cyfair heroes.
Thank you, Ms. Cowart. We will now proceed with the board comments portion of the agenda. Ms. Heineman, would you like to lead us off?
Usually I write out my comments and read them to help keep me focused, but I did not do that for tonight. Like many parents in the district, I am literally crawling to the finish line with my student, and I am grateful. I'm sure parents share my gratitude for the teachers who have helped us push our students to finish this year or pulled them if as needed to get them to finish through the school year. I am very grateful for the teachers who have loved on my student and supported her with grace and patience, because this has been a very difficult year for teachers and for students and for families. I also mentor at-risk students at a couple of our high schools, and I see how their teachers have also loved and supported them with grace and patience. As hard as it has been on us as adults, it has been incredibly difficult for our students, for our kids this year. So we work so hard to keep them safe and to address their physical and mental health, and I'm grateful for the resources that we share with our students and our families, and look for us to continue to do that moving forward as we go into summer with summer school and then prepare for next school year. In terms of the legislative session, I remember when it started in January, and as most of you know, our state legislature only meets every other year and only for 140 days. So it's a very short window. And we felt at the beginning of this session that it was a do no harm session, that there was going to be not a lot of focus on public education because of so much that was going on in Texas with the power grid and with the state budget, with the recession. And sadly, we were wrong. There is a lot of damage that is currently possibly being done to public education. I encourage everyone to stay informed, to understand that public education is nonpartisan. Kids don't care if you have an R or a D behind your name. We have seen through this session champions for public education. Some are R's and some are D's. And we have seen people who have hurt public education and who cut down our teachers and cut down our school districts and tried to take our local control and to concentrate power at the state level in a bureaucratic position instead in a locally elected position. And some of those folks have R's and D's after their names as well. So it's not about the party, it's about how they vote and their values, and it's not about promises made when they're running for office, it's how they act when they're in Austin representing us. So I encourage everyone to be informed, ask questions, and to reach out to your elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ogletree.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've had the privilege of being at three of our outstanding elementary schools since our last meeting. Pope Elementary, led by Principal Elizabeth Bradley. Wells Elementary, led by Principal Cheryl Fitcher. And Duryea, led by Principal Tamika Williams. All three of these schools are quite impressive. They're led by some very impressive leaders. The students are engaged. Learning is taking place in midst a very difficult school year. Leadership has been challenged on every campus, but also commitment has been challenged. And overall, each principal shares the great testimony that their teachers have met the challenge, that they've poured out their hearts, they've given their time, their resources, their skills to make sure that our students learn. How tragic it is that in this day and time when our teachers have had such a traumatic year, a tough year, a year that tested their commitment, their skills, that someone would dare to call them cowards or morally corrupt. The teachers that I've seen and interfaced with, most of them are men and women of faith who are members of our churches, parishes, synagogues, and mosques. Men and women who've surely had to pray to make it through this school year and to reach deep within their hearts to demonstrate a love that we wish we could see from politicians. They've loved on our children, and our children have experienced that love. So I salute them, and as someone mentioned earlier, our nurses have been, gosh, stellar. I think our community should do whatever they can to support public education. We've got a good thing here, and we've made it and done our best. and the teachers and administrators should be applauded. They should be thanked. They should be prayed for. It was great to attend our National Merit Scholars also. And I just thank God for us being able to approach a season of graduations. That not even the pandemic could stop that. And I just applaud our district and thank God for also our parents who have really stood by and helped their children. And I am glad that our numbers have increased now with more and more of our kids back in the classroom. So God bless you to every teacher, every administrator of our public schools. We should be thankful.
Thank you, Dr. O. Mr. Ryan?
I'm not going to be as eloquent as John, obviously. But it got me thinking about when the year started with so much uncertainty. And then this last month, we got to recognize our spotlight teachers, which was amazing. And really, all of our teachers have gone, and everybody on the campuses has gone above and beyond. But what really stands out to me this year is that when we start out with all that uncertainty, and then if you look at our extracurricular activities, our bands, our athletics, the leadership in those departments has just been over the top. We had students that actually got to participate in the programs that they love, and a lot of those programs generate scholarship dollars, big scholarship dollars, that they can continue their education. So I'm extremely proud, Mark, of your leadership, number one. I think you've been amazing. And just the campus leadership across the district has been phenomenal. So I am very grateful for all those that have gone above and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Mrs. Arabia?
Yes, I'm going to start off with happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers here and all the ladies here. They very well deserve Mother's Day gratitude from this tough year and every year. So I want to start with that. I got a chance to go out to a few games this past time since our last meeting. I was fortunate enough to see Cy Ridge upset a highly ranked Lamar High School team in advance to go play Katy, which they will beat Katy. So that would be good. Also, I saw many fans in the stands. It was great. The evening was spectacular at Cy Ridge. The field was outstanding. The play on both sides was good. It was very refreshing to see that. I myself had a playoff game in San Antonio the week before, but it was 97 degrees at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it was a little bit different than Cy Ridge's nice evening last Friday. So that was very nice to see the crowds out there. And I want to shout out to the principals. I'm not sure if they get paid or not for going to all these events, because when I go to these events, they're always there. They're always there representing their kiddos, and they're there at every event you can probably imagine. They are there supporting their kids, and that is simply outstanding of our principals and all our educators, in fact. So kudos to them on that. I also want to thank all our teachers and employees for going through this tough year and handling it with superb leadership. I want to thank our CLC committee, led by Tommy Ballas and Francis Romero. They are out and about in the trenches fighting for public school rights and stuff. And they are a great group and need to be recognized, and we're very blessed as having them here in our community, the CLC. Also, I like Julie had said earlier, we ran on a nonpartisanship platform, you know, right, left, middle, and I'm glad to see that some of our representatives did vote for the public education bills, and I'm very sad that some of them made excuses on why they didn't, and why some others simply said that they were cowards. They have no idea what goes on. I have a son that teaches, and don't be calling my kid a coward. I tell you that right now. I won't be pleasant with the words minced by Mr. Betancourt. How dare he say that to any educator or employee here in the district? That is just irresponsible, and we have no room for that. Votes matter. So your votes matter when it goes to the poll. With that, thank you everybody for showing up. And there's nothing wrong for you guys to be asking for more, whatever you think you may need. That's fine. We'll hear all that and everything else. We appreciate that. But please, no one should call our employees or educators cowards. They have no idea what they're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarabian. Mr. Jackson.
At the May 2014 board meeting, I spoke against Austin politically advocation of outcome-based teacher evaluation and outcome-based funding. I will always remember that it was harshly implied that the air I breathed was more important than the words I spoke. My position and words remain unchanged. Outcome-based funding is ill-advised and doesn't produce sustainable results with integrity, no matter the arena. Look at the Kentucky Derby. I am nearing 90 days without a bedroom, and I am reminded that there are teachers, families, and students who face the same travail. Student attainment can be impacted, and outcome-based funding does not address these difficulties. Because of the pandemic, my JROTC visits were greatly reduced, but I still made 5 stops spread among 4 districts. I firmly believe that these programs are a critical piece of the puzzle for enhancing student attainment both within and without. We say goodbye this week to a Sassy, who personified all that is right and good and brave with the teaching profession and the program that she represented. During the June 2014 graduation season, when my life and skin both bore a gray tint, she gently offered me words to persevere. And so tonight I tip my hat to Major Wanda Ewing and her colleagues. And Senator, I dare say you never met any of these fine people. As a small way of saying thank you to our teachers and staff, I was privileged once again to be a table sponsor for Salute to the Stars and attended my 11th consecutive National Merit Recognition. My heart thrills to see the continued emergence of excellence despite the pandemic, as exemplified by our honorees, Beth Wade and the Berry staff, Marie Holmes and her staff and volunteers, and of course, our communications department. Well done to all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Covey. You know, it really feels like we're finally beginning to reach some sense of normalcy. And in 1 week, we were able to celebrate our teachers. We had our picnic under the stars at the Berry Center in the arena, celebrating our we call them now Teacher of the Year, used to be Spotlight teachers, from each school in our district from 2019. And this event was postponed and rescheduled no less than 3 or 4 times before we were able to carry it out. But the Cy-Fair Educational Foundation was determined that we would celebrate this great group of teachers, and it was truly a wonderful night. Then that same, I think it was the next night, we celebrated the National Merit Scholarship finalist, and so exciting to see these bright young men and women from our school district that were being honored, and to hear of their future plans and where they plan to attend college, and hear their hopes. And another celebration. And last week we enjoyed so many different appreciations. So teacher appreciation, nurse appreciation of our nurses, really of all our staffs. I know I am a member of Good Shepherd United Methodist Church, and some years ago we adopted Danish Elementary, and I was so excited to be a part of a group of women who served Carl's Barbecue, furnished Carl's Barbecue, and served it to the entire staff at Danish, and had a chance to show our appreciation and our love to them for all they have done this year. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be doing the same thing at ALC East. But there have been so many opportunities to show our love and appreciation and visit with our teachers. And what I'm reminded of when I visit with teachers is I said back maybe in January that my word for this year was going to be resilient, because I have seen the spirit of resilience, of determination, of not going to give up, not going to give in by the entire staff of this school district. And I have so much admiration and love for all of our educators and all of the different departments that support them. There's your bus drivers, your cafeteria workers, your custodians, your people behind the scenes, the people housed in this building that help to ensure that each school has what they need. But it has truly been a work of love and a work of hope that we have given to our students. And as Julie said earlier, the grace shown by our teachers for our students, because not only has it not been an easy year for our educators and our support staff, it has not been an easy year for our students as well. And my hat goes off to each one of you, and my deepest gratitude for all you have done. And now as we roll into May, I am so excited about graduation. I think I say this every year, but that is just one of my most favorite events to attend, because I love seeing all of our high school students celebrate graduation and see the culmination of the work that they have put forth, and know that we have equipped them to go out into the world for this next step in life, whether it be trade school, a job, or college. I feel like we have done the best job possible to equip our students. And finally, I just want to say, I guess you'd say some words of condolences for the family of Clay Smith. If you don't know Clay Smith, I have known him probably for 34 or 35 years, back to my credit union days. And he unfortunately lost his battle with cancer last week. He was a great educator, coach, assistant principal, but more importantly, he was a great mentor to many young men and women whom he coached and he worked with in the various schools where he served. And Clay was one of those people that just had love in his heart for each individual he made, and he made a difference in the lives of his students every day. And that, I think that's what we all strive for, is to make a difference. So here's to you, Clay.
Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. Mine's going to be pretty short. Teachers, I know last week was Appreciation Week, but I just must tell you right now that this board, and I know the administration, appreciate y'all all the time. It doesn't have to be the week that we're celebrating you, but you are people that we respect, and it's not just the teachers, it's the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers and janitorial staff. It's everybody. It is the administration. It's the superintendent. Everything that puts this school district on a level of excellence is just beyond belief. And I can tell you that this school district is looked at all over the state of Texas and in certainly many parts of the country as being a leader in the educational excellence that we do practice. I will also tell you that we are fighting with the legislatures. And just like Ms. Heineman said, we thought this was going to be a good year for us because obviously you teachers stood up to the challenge and you did well. Maybe we didn't do as well as we've done in the past, but when you look at what we've had to deal with, it was amazing. And here we are having to fight with the legislature and having charter schools become the prima donnas of education as if they do better than public school. And I can tell you there are research and reports that tell us that is not true. Some of them may be equal to, but very few are even at that point. Majority of them are not. And I am completely mystified that the legislature feels it's important to run two different educational situations, paying more to charter schools than they do to public education. And that is something I just don't understand. I don't get the reasoning. And also, I know the Commissioner of Education, as all of us on this board do. As a person, I like him. But one of the things I don't like is one of our senators from this area is trying to push a bill through which will give him eminent power over districts, and it will take away some of the power of the State Board of Education. And they are our elected officials. He is an appointee of the governor. He is not an elected official. He does not have to answer to us. All he has to answer to is the governor. And I don't appreciate some of the things that are being done. And I am really appalled at the statement that was made about teachers. I salute you. I have so much respect for you. I'm married to one. And if you're married to one, like Dr. Ogletree and I are, you know the work that goes in on a regular year. Nothing like what they've had to face now. So I just want you to know we do hear you. We do listen. We also have to look at the entire district, and we have to make sure that our finances are in good shape. And so I know what you're asking for. It's something that we are not being oblivious to. So thank you for being here tonight. And now I will turn it over to citizen participation. Patrons who have duly registered for a policy BED local may address the board regarding matters of concern or interest to the district other than the character of any student, staff, or board member. The board may not act upon any matter that is not listed under the action item portion of the agenda. Tonight we have 7 people. We'll start out with Donna Lord. Donna?
Good evening. I'm coming to you tonight regarding the crucial work of planning for the ARP ESSER funds. Cy-Fair is projected to receive a little over $189 million. The Department of Education requires districts to create a publicly available plan for the use of these funds, which is reached through meaningful consultation with stakeholders, including educators, school staff, and their unions. Collaboration with educators who serve our students day in and day out is essential to the effective planning, as was reflected in the department's guidance to state commissioners, stating educators and their unions should be an essential component of the process. To ensure meaningful consultation, we request that Cy-Fair TSTA have seats on any committees formed and to be able to participate in any discussions where these funding decisions are being made. We also request opportunities for advanced review and comment on draft plans for any planning or funding decisions made with these funds. It is crucial that we use these funds to meet the long-held needs of our students, especially now that we have seen these needs exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. We need more counseling staff, and we need them to be able to provide primarily counseling services. We need more nurses, social workers, and special education staff. We need to be able to address the traumas our students have experienced, and that happens through social and health services. We also need to be able to retain high-quality teachers. It's imperative that we make a human investment in these funds to provide the best outcomes for our students. We look forward to working with you to ensure prudent, effective allocation of these funds to provide safe and equitable schools for all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lord. Aisa Indemaid, and I'm probably totally mispronounced that. Come on up, and would you tell us your name when you get here so we get it correct?
Hello, everybody. My name is Aisha Indemayo, and thank you for your time. I'm a concerned parent of 3, and my purpose for speaking is threefold. First, I want to add my name to the list of parents calling for the removal of a video titled implicit bias. Secondly, to let the board know I support Texas Senate Bill 2202 because it bans these types of videos and lessons from public schools in Texas. Lastly, I came to ask the board to provide more transparency on who was involved in the decision to air the video. I found out about the video when I did an internet search for critical race theory in Cypher ISD, and I came across a website called whataretheylearning.com. It had an email from Bridgeland High School telling parents there would be a video followed by a teacher-led discussion. The video proclaims that one test proves a particular race-gender combo unconsciously thinks that people that don't look like them are not as smart or capable. That's quite a statement backed by our district. With the authority to shape our children's innocent minds, the district is telling them that it agrees with this proclamation by attempting to air it and support it in schools. The video refutes critics by saying while the test can't predict any one person's thoughts, it can predict the entire group of people. That is a false premise. In my opinion, this video tells innocent children that their unconscious thoughts are known based on the color of their skin. None of this is reality. Predicting the unconscious, I don't believe in it. And very ironically, it was going to take place on No Hate Day. Finally, I asked for transparency. I'd like a walkthrough of the process of who provided the video to Bridgeland High School and why. I was told it was the district. What votes or discussions went into the directive to promote this? And was this a pilot program for Bridgeland High School, or are there other critical race theory lessons all over Cypher ISD schools? I'd like any teacher packets to be sent out as well. Also, I believe this discussion should be student-led and not teacher-led. Thank you.
Thank you. Melma Walker.
Good evening. I'll just take this off. I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for over 18 years now. Previously, I was in medical records in corporate America, and you see the dynamics. But I went into education because I enjoy seeing the growth of my students. A statement by Sidney Hook says, "Everyone who remembers his own education remembers teachers. Not methods or techniques. The teacher is the heart of the educational system." You've heard a lot of people speaking today, and we're all speaking the same thing from our hearts. Think about the educator. I appreciate the board giving us accolades. I appreciate the video of words and the 5-paragraph
letter, it was very inspiring. But we would like to see some monetary resources to back those words. This is an awesome and an interesting year. We have had to deal with the spraying down of the desk, not with the problem, because I want my students to be safe. My child is in Cy-Fair. I tell her the same thing. But I did something different today. As an educator, we know we are evaluated throughout the year. I had my students evaluate me because I know as an educator, I'm a lifelong learner of myself and to better myself. My students gave me great feedback. Thank you, Mrs. Walker, for being there. Thank you for getting me through this time. And I want to continue to do that with the help of the board and my colleagues. We can do this.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Feast Earthens, Anna, Ginger, Joshua, Cassie, Maddie, and Judy.
Hello, we are the Earthians, a group of concerned students from Feast Elementary. We are requesting compost bins and recycling services.
If you are wondering why, it's because the earth needs help. Together we can save it. There's lots of things we can do to help our planet.
Our school needs compost bins, so a lot of food does not go to waste. If we get the compost bins, it could create more jobs.
We could have a team of people who help with the compost bins. We could put our leftover food in the compost bins and the tray in the recycling bin. This will reduce trash, and the compost can be used in gardens.
This will help our environment.
Will you help us? Compost bins help the environment and save animals.
Slowly but surely, we can save the earth. All we need to do is compost and recycle. Compost and recycle, and our earth can be green again.
We could make a huge difference in the world. We could be a part of it.
If you could get us compost bins, it would help us a lot. We would need wood and nails to make them, or they can be ordered already made.
We also wanted to ask for recycling bins for all of CFISD schools. That way we can have more people recycling. Along with that, we would need a recycling company to take the materials and recycle it.
This would reduce waste, which helps save the school district money and could help cover the cost of letting schools have a recycling service for paper, metal, plastic, and glass. More recycling means less trash.
You can put so many things in a compost bin. That's why we made a list. You can put shredded paper, wood chips, wood shavings, dry leaves, and straw hay.
Thank you. Are you done? Say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Feast Earthens. Riley Shadell.
Hi there. I'm Riley Shadell. I'm in 11th grade. I attend Jersey Village High School. I'm here to talk about my battle to find the right regimen in my healthcare. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease about 7 years ago. With that, I've missed school constantly. With that, though, when I was in the hospital, I was always studying, doing my work as I should, and I made sure to keep my grades up. The only issue I had was with attendance. I wanted to do something about it, so I was able to get in contact with the AFT union. They connected me to my local state representative, Mr. John Rosenthal. With him, we were able to create a bill for students just like me. House Bill 699, also titled Riley's Rule. It was born and introduced last month. It aims to change the way absences are counted for students with chronic illnesses and I have traveled to testify in person to the Capitol during the pandemic, which is super nerve-wracking, but it's so worth it for the kids who are just like me, who are struggling. I also wanted to thank the senators for listening to me and believing in me and Representative John Rosenthal. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd LeCompte.
My name's Todd LeCompte. I have two boys that attend Cyfair School District. I wanted to talk today about the mask policy again. CDC has reported, for those that completely have trust in the CDC, that 480 deaths nationwide occurred in 2018-2019 flu season. That's for ages 0 to 17. Now listen to this. As of May 5th, 2021, the CDC has reported 352 deaths for children aged 0 to 18. I appreciate the board listening to me and writing a detailed letter to me, mailed to me, based on why you guys are doing the mask. But what it doesn't discuss in here from Memorial Hermann is the psychological effects, negative psychological effects it's having on our kids. All right? It's not discussing, the increase in mental health issues. It's not discussing the increase in suicide. Let me give you some numbers on suicide. Ages 5 through 11 years old. Suicides have increased by 24%. Ages 12 through 17, suicides have increased by 31%. You guys have a responsibility to make decisions for our kids. I understand this is for the prevention of COVID-19, but you have to take in all the information and make a tough decision sometimes. All right? We don't want to lose one kid. I understand that. We don't want to lose one person. All right? But you have to take all the information and then make the best decision possible for our children. You're about to ask little kids that are in elementary school to go outside in 90-degree weather and wear a mask. Why? You don't think this is harming them psychologically? I have a 5th grader, and I'm telling you, it does. And I've heard more people like this. And the reason why I'm here again today is because I had teachers calling me up, coaches calling me up, administrators calling me up, and asking me to keep fighting. Because guess what? They're afraid to lose their jobs. We need to think about that. Let me read this. My wife bought this for me at Costco just a couple hours ago. These masks are not personal protective equipment and are not intended as replacements or substitute for personal protective equipment. These products are not intended for medical use or to prevent any disease or illness. I'm going to ask the board, please use discernment. Take in all the information and make the best decision for our children.
Thank you. Candace Bryant.
First, thank you for having me. I just want to say thank you guys for all you've done, from the school board's decision to offer in-line person to the teachers, coaches, faculty, and staff. I can only imagine the challenges you have faced daily. I truly do appreciate your efforts and hard work. With that being said, I do have a few issues of concern. Last week, parents of high school students, one of which I have, were sent a text and an email stating the COVID vaccine would be available to a limited number of students on Wednesday, May 5th for ages 16 and up with parental consent, and literally my head exploded. As of now, I'm not aware of any parental involvement in making this decision to offer the vaccine to these students. The only advance notice we received was 1 day prior. This is completely unacceptable. We as parents must take our children to the doctor. The school district doesn't even offer mandatory vaccines. Why are you offering an experimental vaccine to our children? This is May 2021, not May 2020. And if there's one thing we have learned over the past year, that is children are the least likely to get COVID of any age. And if they do get COVID, they are typically asymptomatic and are not carriers of this disease. We have no idea the long-range or the long-term possibility or side effects of this vaccine, and to give this vaccine to this least at-risk population is irresponsible. And yes, I understand they needed a note from their parent to receive the vaccine, or the parent had to be in attendance. But for the students who brought a note, how could you be sure that was signed by the parent? Everyone agrees keeping our children safe is a top priority, but we also must use logical risk assessment when making these policies. Motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death among children under 18. However, we all still drive every single day. Yes, we wear seatbelts and make sure our kids are in a car seat or a booster seat and obey traffic laws. We take reasonable, keyword, reasonable actions to prevent accidents, but we cannot stop driving or only drive when there is no traffic or not go over 20 miles per hour or only drive a huge Hummer. These are not reasonable actions to stop or avoid a car accident. Just as many of the policies are not reasonable to prevent COVID.
Please summarize, please.
So basically what we're asking is that any protocol that you did not make in 2019 at the beginning of the 2019 school year, do not make in 2021. No social distancing, no signs on the floor, no.
Thank you,
not
ma'am.
having-
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
We're now going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back to go into the reports. Okay, we're going to begin again. 7A, the reports. The administration will present an oral report on the preliminary budget for 2021 through 2022 school year. Karen Smith.
Covey and Dr. Henry. Today I'll be presenting the preliminary general operating budget for 2021-2022. I thought it would be useful to start out by discussing the cost incurred to date associated with COVID-19. What you see here is the cost that we've incurred in 2021, and it's as of April 30th, so it's not through the end of the year. The payroll cost up here that you see is primarily associated with the Lead Safely stipend, which was $8.3 million that the district paid out in December of 2020. In addition, it includes $650,000 that we anticipate that we will be paying out towards stipends for substitutes and temporary workers. It also includes supplemental pay and overtime for some of our staff during this year, as well as additional substitutes, the AIS substitutes, which were the permanent substitutes that were on the campus, as well as COVID leave. The non-payroll costs were for our one-to-one devices. That was the biggest expense we had that was out of bond funds. And then in addition to that, in the general fund, it was primarily for things like plexiglass, hotspots, PPE, or I should say hotspot service, PPE and sanitation methods that we had to maintain. Also included here are lost revenues that the district has incurred, and primarily that in the general fund that has been interest income, loss of facilities use fees, athletics and gate receipts, as well as concessions, catering and private music lessons. Then you'll see here a loss of $7.6 million in food service to date. And what this reflects is a decline in the a la carte sales, as well as just participation in general with food service because of either kids not participating or the kids learning at home. Also, we've had a decline associated with the community programs of the number of kids enrolled in the community programs. As of March 30th, 2021, the general fund deficit is approximately $72.1 million. And what that reflects is these costs here, as well as the deficit that was presented to the board that was adopted at the beginning of the school year. Although the ADA hold harmless was supposed to hold districts completely harmless in 2021, it didn't completely hold the district harmless. Basically, it was about $18 million less than we had budgeted for and about $10 million less than the prior year. However, the deficit could be reduced considerably by using some of the stimulus funding that we will talk about later and applying that towards this school year, because it will be allowed to capture some of the cost incurred during this school year. In addition, the district is waiting to see if we will be reimbursed from some of the CARES Act funding that we have applied for. We've been waiting to hear back on that, so maybe some of that CARES Act funding will come in. So later in the presentation, I will cover some of the federal funding available to the district. The factors that were influencing this budget process this year for 21-22 are the decline in student enrollment, addressing student learning loss, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic additional expenditures, and then the outcome of the legislative session. For example, at this time, it's allowable for districts, after a year a disaster is declared, to add an additional pennies as it sees fit to address the cost associated with the disaster and recovering from that disaster. However, the legislature has proposed, both at the House side and the Senate side, that a pandemic will not qualify as a disaster. So we might not be able to access those pennies. So that's just an example of some of the things that we're waiting to find out in the legislative session. Also, an increase in property values. Not only does the increase in property values mean that we will have more tax receipts, but also as property values increase, because of House Bill 3, the tax rate is further compressed on the M&O side. The budget was built on 4 primary goals, which is to preserve the quality of instruction and services, retain and recruit quality staff, prioritize student and staff safety, and to protect the district's operational infrastructure. This slide reflects the taxable property values for the last 5 years. These are the values that we receive from the Harris County Appraisal District. The 2021 tax year values are the Harris County Appraisal District's preliminary values that they gave us as of April the 30th, which is $61.4 billion. The budget was built on a 6% increase in property values. Residential property increased about 8 to 10% is what we're hearing, but it was offset by commercial property that didn't show the same increases because of vacancies. Also, inventory was down, which we receive property taxes on. The next slide shows student enrollment over the last 5 years. For 2017-2018, you'll see that we went from enrollment of 160,368 to now, it went up, and then now we're back to about 116,105 estimated enrollment for next year. For 2020-21, this amount that you'll see here, that you see the enrollment change of 1,689, this reflects compared to the prior year's actual enrollment. So if you're looking at it and saying, oh, I thought we lost about 3,000 students, the reason you see a difference here is the 3,000 students is compared to what we projected for 2020-21, and here we're comparing to the prior year actual. So for 2021, we're estimating 116,105, and that is a conservative estimate at this time as far as enrollment for next year, because we just don't know how many of those pre-K and K kids will be returning to the district. The next slide, we always like to show you an example of a comparison of teacher salaries with our competition. So you will see here salaries for the 0-year, 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, and 20-year salaries. So for the 0-year, there are 3 districts that are higher than Cypress-Fairbanks ISD, where you'll see Spring Branch at 58,000, and then Klein and Spring at 56,500. However, for the 5, 10, and 15-year, the district is second compared to the other districts, just behind Spring Branch. And then for the 20-year salary, we're first compared to the other districts in the area that we've compared to. I also want to stress that this does not include, what you're seeing here does not include the 8.3 million where we actually provided the Leave Safely stipend. Some of the considerations that are included in the budget this year is the hotspot Wi-Fi and Amazon Web Services for $4 million. This is an item that we could recode and pull out of the budget through some of the ESSER funding that we'll have available that I'll discuss with you in a little bit. Also increases in software licenses of $1.4 million, and then speech therapist contracted services of $1.3 million. It also includes some overtime and supplemental pay associated with our counselors, as well as increases in TRS on behalf, as well as the district contribution towards TRS. And it also includes insurance, increases in insurance and cybersecurity insurance, as well as increased cost with the election, because we'll be having an election this next year, and then consultants. And the consultant area is associated with the long-range equity audit that we will be having, as well as new mandated social and emotional learning programs. And then lastly, some miscellaneous general supplies and other operating costs. The preliminary budget was based on the cost that I just discussed in the previous slide, and it reflects an estimated deficit of $41.3 million prior to considering raises. The deficit assumes, as usual, all positions will be filled, all budgeted funds will be spent, and we have a very conservative estimate for student enrollment. The deficit could be reduced by moving some of the allowable costs that are allowed through the federal funding that we will be receiving to allow for freeing up some of that general fund money for raises for teachers.
Just clarification, a raise for employees.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
teachers.
I meant all employees, and I said teachers. Apologize. Thank you. Some of the other budget considerations that we took in the part of this budget, I already mentioned the compression of the tax rate, and according to House Bill 3, school districts the tax rate we can adopt is the lower of the state compressed rate and the local compressed rate. And at this point in time, based on the information that we have, we believe that our property values will grow at a greater rate than the state's, what they are predicting statewide. Therefore, we will be probably having the local compressed rate. So just to refresh your memory, anytime property values increase more than 2.5%, that's when tax rate compression happens with the M&O tax rate. The district will report their property values to TEA in July, and we should find out sometime the first week of August what that compressed tax rate will be. Also included on this slide is letting you know the cost of a salary increase of 1%. A salary increase of 1% costs the district $8.2 million. Although a salary increase would add to the estimated deficit, the district does have a healthy fund balance and will have options due to the federal funding available to reduce both the 2020-21 and the 21-22 deficits. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, the deficit assumes that all positions will be filled and all budgeted funds will be spent. Now I'd like to review some of the federal funding available that was created through various stimulus packages. The Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds, or ESSER as it's been referred to, have been created under 3 different stimulus packages. The first was in March of 2020, the second was in December of 2020, and the third was in March of 2021. The ESSER funding can be used for preventing and preparing for and responding to COVID-19, addressing learning loss, preparing schools for reopening, improving air quality in buildings, as well as evidence-based interventions that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs, and then also addressing disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on various student populations. Next, you will see the Coronavirus Relief Fund, or CRF, and that was part of the CARES Act, and it was passed part of the money that we received in March 2020. And that can be used to reimbursing school districts for COVID-19 expenses. Also, there was a state program for bulk purchase of e-learning devices and internet solutions. That's something that we could have participated in, but we did not. This is where we would have actually bought the devices through the state of Texas. And we chose not to because the devices that they were offering would not really meet our standards for the classroom. And also there was a local match reimbursement that was a possibility, but you cannot have the local match unless you participated in this bulk purchase program. So what we're actually eligible for as a district is the prior purchase reimbursement program that will help reimburse us for some of our costs associated with devices. The next item is it's through the CARES Act, and it is the Provider Relief Fund. And this actually allowed the school district to recover 2% of its school health and related services gross revenue that we had received, and it can be utilized for health care related expenses or lost revenues associated with COVID-19. And then lastly, FEMA. At this time, only FEMA funding available is Category B, Emergency Preparedness, which really does not provide much funding to the school district. The only eligible funding we have is to be reimbursed for one cleaning that was done in the spring of 2020. The remainder of it, they're saying, basically is more for cities and counties, and we're not eligible for the remainder of any FEMA funding. So let's go over some of those federal funding options that I've been talking about. The chart reflects federal funding options for Cypress-Fairbanks ISD, as well as the spending timeline, the eligible amount the district could receive, as well as the amount the district has received to date. The ESSER 1 funds that you see here first, it was $17.7 million. And just to refresh your memory, this is the money that the state used to supplant state aid in 2019-20. So what we did is we requested about a little over $2 million that we drew down in 2019-2020, and the remaining about $15.4 million we saved to draw down in 2020-2021 to help offset the deficit. And we were able to do that because we were fairly close to balancing the budget, if you recall, in 2019-2020. We've heard very little for quite a while about the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 money. We've been waiting. Well, recently there was information announced related to the ESSER 3 funding. But at this time, we're really unsure on the ESSER 2 funding when we're really going to hear more information about that and how much of the $76.1 million we will actually receive. There is actually a bill out there right now that has to do with creating a grant. It tells you the type of items you can spend the money on, and it gives quite a bit of authority to the Commissioner of Education to make decisions related to this funding. The next is the ESSER 3 funding that we recently heard about. This funding is available, and it goes back to allowing districts to recover all these actually, pre-award cost. And what that means is any cost that the district incurred from March 13th till we get the notice of grant award on the ESSER 3 money, we can go back and claim any of those eligible costs. So that's what I've been referring to, that we might have the opportunity to basically move some money from the general fund into ESSER 3 funds so that we can maybe give raises to all of our employees. So it gives us an opportunity here. It is $189.2 million. However, all that was released up to this date is 2/3, which is $126.1 million. And so the district will be actually having to apply for this funding and submit an application. So at this time, the state is actually seeking clarity related to the remaining 1/3. So we're not sure exactly when the remaining 1/3 will be available for us to apply for. But districts must set aside 20% of the ESSER III funds for evidence-based interventions and to respond to students' academic, social, emotional needs, as well as addressing the disproportionate impact of the coronavirus on various student populations. The district was able, on the next line, the CRF money, we were able to apply for 10.1 of the eligible amount that we were eligible for. We were actually eligible for 15.9 million, but you will see here it has a very short timeline. It was from March 1st, 2020 to May 20th, 2020. Well, most of our costs were incurred, as you probably know, after that date. Therefore, we were only able to apply for 10.1 million, and then of that, we can only receive 75% of what they approve. This is administered through the Texas Department of Emergency Management. And, unfortunately, to date, what we're finding is a lot of questioning from the Texas Department of Emergency Management and indicating that some of the cost will not be eligible for reimbursement. So at this time, we're really unsure how much of the, it's approximately a little over 7 million if you look at the 75% amount that we turned in that we will actually receive. We're hoping we will get at least 5 million of that money and hopefully more, but we're waiting to find out about that. So you'll see up to this point, every item that I've discussed so far, we really have not received any funding to date, except for maybe what they supplanted in state aid, but that was no new money. Also, the CRF, the other item is the prior purchase reimbursement program. This is the one where I mentioned that we submitted for reimbursement towards our devices. The district was eligible to claim up to $19.1 million. This was a particular one, we will get 84.6 of whatever cost we've turned in. So this one, we were actually able to turn in more than the 19.1 million in cost, hoping to get the full 19.1 million. However, a majority of that is going to go back into bond funds because that's where we paid for our one-to-one devices. But it will help us by about 2.7 million of reimbursing our Wi-Fi services that were in the general fund. The next one is the CARES, and this relates to funding associated with, that I mentioned that we could get reimbursed, the Provider Relief Fund towards our SHARS funding at 2%. And you'll see this is the only money that we have received to date from all the federal stimulus money, and we received $742,474. And then I've already discussed with you FEMA that we expect to receive very little from FEMA.
So just to summarize that, you want to know why we need a fund balance? Because the state has $300 million that were intended for us, and we've received $742,000. So what are they doing with the money is what I want to know.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Henry. So some of the considerations as far as use of this ESSER III funding that we've discussed that is available to us now that we can apply for, first, it's one-time funding, and it's non-reoccurring dollars. So we have to remember that it's one-time funding. The deadline for use of the funds, we're allowed to utilize it, as I mentioned, pre-award cost, but we can also spread it out through September 30th, 2024. Also, as I mentioned, we can consider pre-award costs that we could recode. But something else to remember is that the hold harmless is no longer available after the 2020-21 school year. We also may be allowed to supplant some of our existing spending that will incur next year after that notice of grant award is given to us, and allow that. Also, there's a requirement called maintenance of equity requirements. This is something that we're really, TEA is seeking clarification on, but part of what that is it relates to not cutting funding at campuses because you're getting this federal funding, especially at our Title I campuses. So we're waiting for a little clarification, because it could limit what we're allowed to recode, but we believe we can still definitely recode some funds because we'll have increased cost and we'll still maintain equity. So some of these items, like I said, is what we need to consider as we decide how to spend that ESSER III money. But as you know, as Dr. Henry indicated, it's important to maintain a healthy fund balance for us to respond to disasters. Also, it affects our bond underlying rating. And it costs more to borrow money if our rating isn't as good, and it costs taxpayers dollars as a result of that. But the district does have the opportunity to draw down the deficit both in 2021 as well as next year in 2021, 2022 with some of these federal dollars and provide a raise for all our employees and still address student learning. We'll be no more further after we get additional clarification both on the federal side as well as the state side.
And let me interject right
Sure.
here, and y'all may have questions to Karen. She's only a couple of pages from being through. But our goal is still to come as close as we can to balancing the budget. So probably what we're going to give you, like most years, is the worst case scenario, and we expect it to be better than that.
And so what are our next steps? First of all, we will be presenting to the board at the June 21st board meeting the ESSER III plan as well as the budget, the proposed budget. Then on June 24th, we'll be asking the board to consider approving the ESSER III plan as well as the 2021-2022 budget. And then after approval of the ESSER III plan, the district will submit that grant application. It is due to TEA by July 27th, 2021. So now I'll open it up to any questions that you might have over the presentation.
Thank you, Karen. That was a great report. Appreciate it. Looking around, Debbie. Ms. Blackshear.
Okay, I'm looking for my note here, Karen. Back to, we were discussing the different, the different federal funding options. And you'd made the comment that we can only receive 75% of what we are eligible for. Well, where does the other 25% go then?
Yes, the 75% is related to the CRF funds, okay, just the CRF, not the ESSER, the biggest piece.
Right.
And the other 25%, it doesn't come to us. It's basically kept at the state level. That other 25% is kept, and does not come to us.
So why do they get to keep it?
It's the way
this is just absolute insanity and underscores why everyone should vote in statewide elections. It's unbelievable to me that we have these funds that have been sent to us, yet we have received $742,000. Where is our state's legislators' concern for our students and our districts? Instead, they're trying to give money away to charter schools. Vote, people. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get on a tirade, but it just really upsets me that the funds should be available to us, but they are deciding what to do with it. It's crazy.
It is. Would you like a water? Dr. Ogletree?
Yes, thank you for the report, Karen. Now, did we understand you to say on the ESSER 1 that you made application or request for the funds there?
No, sir. Well, we did have to do an application, but
Okay.
we did an application just to be able to supplant state aid. So we
Okay.
didn't get any new money, but we did have to prepare an application just to request to get the money in the first place.
And on the ESSER 2?
That ESSER 2 is the one that we have not really heard anything about yet, and we're waiting to hear. Related to that, that's the one where there's a bill out there, HB 4465, that talks about how this federal funds will flow. We believe it relates to ESSER 2, but the state has been holding back ESSER 2. And then the ESSER 3 is the one that we will be doing an application for in July.
Okay. So all of these monies are in the depository of the state at this time, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, it's, the ESSER 2, all the money that they have yes, they have it and they have not released it to us.
Okay.
Except for the third associated with ESSER 3, the state has to complete an application to the federal government to get that additional third, and they actually have to submit a plan. So they have not gotten the third, but they should be getting the third later on, once that plan's submitted.
Okay, so all the rally and talk about the state needing to release the funds from that the federal government has already sent to the state for the local public schools, that has to do with ESSER 2 at this present time, is that right?
You're talking about the part that we haven't gotten yet? Is that what
Yes.
I want to be sure I'm understanding.
The
Yeah.
talk across the state, release the funds that you've received, release them to the public schools. It's not ESSER 3.
It was actually, it had been both, Dr.
Okay.
Ogletree, and just recently they released the ESSER 3. So, more than a little over a week ago, it was related to ESSER 2 and ESSER 3.
Okay, so both of
Yes.
them. Okay. So are you saying that what we do for our staff, our educators, is it tied into what we are able to receive from the state, from these federal funds?
I would say that the federal funds are allowing us to free up fund balance, maybe would reduce the deficit, so to speak. It's going to allow us to do that so that we can provide raises to staff
Dr.
if we do
Ogletree,
that.
what we're going to ask you to do before July 1st when we approve a budget is we're going to ask you to approve a budget based on the faith that we're going to receive these funds to help us offset. So I guess we're probably going to ask you to take a little bit of a chance. We don't think it's a big chance, but what makes that possible is we do have a healthy fund balance so that we can go ahead and propose a raise for our employees and propose a budget before we're going to receive these funds, because you can see, as Karen said, we wouldn't receive those before July 27th. Isn't that the right date?
Well, that's when our application is due.
Okay, so we won't get it probably till well into August or September.
I believe so, because it may take them a while to review that application.
Yeah,
and
our
let
budget
us-
year, just as a reminder to the viewing audience, is July 1st.
Mhm.
Any more, Dr. Okay, Mr. Ryan?
So, just because we're talking about the state, and we have a CFISD eligible amount. That
It went away.
there's a pretty good potential of us not getting our eligible amount.
I would say that is the case possibly with the CRF and with the PPRP, which is the reimbursement program for our one-to-one devices. We feel better about the one-to-one, but hopefully with the ESSER 3, we will get our eligible amount. Mr. Ryan, just because they said it is supplemental and on top of. ESSER 2, we still don't know. One of the things that we've heard, and actually it's in one of the TEA FAQs related to federal funding and how they're going to fund the hold harmless that we got this year, they're saying that they may use some federal funding for that. And so we're feeling there's a chance it's the ESSER 2 money. So I would say on the ESSER 2, you're correct. We don't know how much we'll get from that.
Because right now, we've got a lot of zeros.
We do.
That's a lot. I mean, it looked like my transcripts. So, we're relying on a group of individuals that have been sitting on a rainy day fund for a while, too.
Yes, sir.
And so, Mark, just based on history, I would hope with what y'all would bring to us would, I guess, have some leeway in it versus just our eligible numbers, because it's a little scary when we're relying on Austin. It really is.
Yeah.
From our perspective as a local board, that scares me.
I would say this, the ESSER II money, they're trying every way they can to supplant funding school districts, so I'm not counting a whole lot on that. I'm holding out that ESSER III, we will receive that 126 million, and then the second, third, I don't know, Don. They're literally keeping our money away from us, and the only reason they are is because they can. That's all I can say.
And I will say, I'm glad you brought up the rainy day fund. Just to make it clear, our fund balance is not the same as the state's rainy day fund. The rainy day fund.
No, we use ours.
Yeah, exactly.
We use
ours. But the rainy day fund is true available and leftover money. Our fund balance at the end of the year, that includes, we have not received all our state funding that's due us. It includes the fact that we have accrued salaries that are fixing to go out that's part of that. It also includes the fact that we have to pay for, whether it be coronavirus pandemic, Hurricane Harvey, the freeze, all that comes out of our money ahead of time before we ever get reimbursed. And yes, sir. And then federal money, the federal funds. The way the federal fund reimbursement works, whether it be for Title I, IDEA B, or whatever, we get to draw down the money after we've spent it. So you see why we need a fund balance, and it's totally different than the state's rainy day fund.
And I think, and I'm speaking for me as a board member, what's frustrating is that when you have this many people come out for citizen participation, and we keep saying, hey, we value teachers, and we do, but we can't necessarily show a monetary value when someone else is holding our cash. That makes it extremely difficult because collectively as a board, we want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And so that, for me, is personally frustrating because we do hear what they say. We see what they've done to go over and above this year. And then what we're planning to do is tied into Austin holding our money. And that's extremely frustrating. It really is. And Mark, y'all do a fantastic job, but I don't know if the public, for the most part, really grasp where our hands are tied on some of this stuff, because we're waiting for elected officials to do something on our behalf. So that's all I got. I'm off my soapbox.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Karen, for your presentation. And also thank you for not speaking in a monotone voice the entire time as your predecessor was wont to do. For over 20 years, there was a radio personality who has passed who routinely said, financially starve your opposition. And I have an unfair question, you don't have to answer it. Do you think that's what Austin is doing to us? If we're called cowards because we're in the same boat as our staff and morally corrupt, is it Austin's intent to financially starve us?
I don't know if I can 100% reply to that in that aspect, but what I will say, is the fact that there was a bill out there to make districts spend their fund balance and not have more than 3 months in fund balance makes me question things. It didn't happen, thank goodness, to this point, but, you know, it makes me question what they're thinking.
You know, you mentioned on the hold harmless that we did not receive the amount of funds that we anticipated, and I think by inference, if we anticipated them, then at least in your opinion as a CPA and CFO, that we deserve to receive those. I know in past hold harmlesses, because we did not have the political clout exercised on our behalf as other districts, that we were disadvantaged to a far greater extent than other districts. So once again, another unfair question, but I guess that's my trademark. Were we disadvantaged more on this hold harmless shortfall, or were all districts treated equally? Or do we know?
Well, and I would say I have to say that's hard to say, only because the way House Bill 3 works. But I will say quite a few districts were harmed by the hold harmless, because when you think hold harmless, you think you're held harmless. But way it was calculated, it is taking the 17, 18, 18, 19, and 19, 20 school years and doing an average. And when it does that, the 17, 18 school year and the 18, 19 school year are pre-House Bill 3. So when they take that, and it dilutes the average, and so where we lost funding is in career and technology, because House Bill 3 extended funding to students that take career and technology eligible courses in 7th and 8th grade, and then it was also in the special education arena, because there's more identification of students since then, so we have lost out because of that. Where it makes it difficult is there's some districts that are receiving, whether it be a fast growth allotment, whether they were able to receive, there's a form of a hold harmless, I guess, if you will, associated with HB3. And if you didn't get enough, if your loss was enough of a certain amount, then you got some funding that would kind of run out depending on the situation over 3 years or over 5 years. So we didn't get any of that money. We weren't eligible for any of that money. So I would say if you're looking just at the base, everybody was kind of the same, but you have to take in consideration some of these other nuances.
Thank you. 11 years ago, Christine Hartley and I ran on a platform that included a key component of trying to return salaries to what we described as being the golden years for Cy-Fair, where Cy-Fair led the county in salaries. And then we had some subpoints. One of the subpoints was to increase or decrease the counselor load on a per-student basis. And so I went to one of Dr. Henry's favorite organizations, Houston A+, that featured counselor heads from around Harris County. Everybody talked about the counselor load, and lo and behold, our counselor load was the highest of any of the districts represented. In subsequent years, we have reduced that, and in fact, a couple of years ago, Dr. Macias noted that our counselor load is comparable to other districts, but that's not what I would describe as being in the golden years. In January of last year, I posited that we needed additional counselors, and I know that we have, from my perspective as a trustee, a bit of an arbitrary requirement as to what schools get an extra counselor allotment and which ones don't. I'm not talking about the efficacy of that, but in January before the pandemic, I saw a need, and I'm not saying I was prescient, but it's been something that I've talked about really for a decade now. When you come back to us with the budget, and this is really on your side of the ledger, Mark, I would like to see an enhancement of our counselor services, particularly because I think if I saw a need for them in January, I see more of a need for them this year. And that was January pre-pandemic. And I think just like my lack of a bedroom is going to continue, I think the impact of the pandemic will impact our students as well. If you would, let's talk about how big is big and how small is small. For our fund balance, what is the size of our fund balance minus our current projected deficit?
Let's see, I've got that over here. Our fund balance, if you take away the projected deficit, I guess you could say as of now, worst case scenario of 72 million, our fund balance would be 445 million point seven. And we're currently at June 30th, 2020, we had about 6.5 months in fund balance.
So for the 445, how many months is that?
That would take us down, I believe I had down here to about 5.6 months, I believe. Let's see. I think it was about, I'd have to, let me look at that real quick. I can look at that and get that to you. I think
It's roughly 5 months because
think
we
it
have a
was
$1
around
billion
5.
budget.
5 months, about 5, yeah, a little over 5, barely.
So here's the next back of the envelope question for you. How much of that, if we gave a 3% raise for 5 years, how much of that fund balance would we consume?
Well, each year, well, just, a 3% raise this year, and so I would have to look at it based on increasing it after that. But if we did a 3% raise this year, it would cost us $24.6 million.
So let's say 25 million.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 years worth is 125. Let's round it up for inflation. So let's say 140 million. And that's out of 445 minus 140. That would leave us roughly 300, which would still leave us somewhat better than 3 months.
Barely, because expenditures would be increasing.
So that gives us an idea that we have a little bit of leeway here.
Yes, we do.
Talk to me and educate me a little bit about the ESSER 3 plan. So sketch out the big picture for me.
Yes.
What's going to go in that plan?
Okay, let me grab. So we have a certain number of items that, it's 15 items that are eligible, that we can spend the funding on. And so what will be done is, as I indicated, 20% of that has to be spent on certain items such as addressing the learning loss, and some of the disproportionate maybe effects on certain student populations. And then after that, then we kind of look at those other 15 items and what we want to do.
So let me stop you right there. So is that, and to put it into terminology I can anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say Mark and Linda come up with a new camp. Can it pay for that new camp for 2 years or 3 years, or does it just pay for that new camp 1 year?
It'll depend on the cost of that camp, because basically, the part that we're required to set aside to address learning loss, that comes out to about 25.2 million that we have to set aside out of that 126 million. And then once we receive the third, if we receive the third, which hopefully we will, then we'd have to set aside more just towards that. And then we'd have discretion with the remainder of how the rest of it would be spent.
So that means, let me put words in your mouth, but so that I can understand them. if they had a new program they wanted to come to us with, and let's say that the cost of it was $8 million a year, and roughly we had 24, then we could see we could fund that for 3 years, because I've heard from both Mark as well as Linda that it could take at least 2 years, maybe as much as 4 years, to make up the deficit, which says that any special programs that we have to provide funding for that time period. So is my understanding?
You're correct. And that funding can go through September 30th of 2024. So you are correct. We can spread it out over that period of time. We don't have to draw it all down this year.
You do have to spend the money, though, by September 30th of '24.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we've got the money basically for 3 years. Or we've got to use the money in 3 years. If we get it.
Yeah. And it's one-time funding.
That hits the highlights of my questions. I obviously have many more, but this is an evolving process, and what you presented was more of a high-level look-see. So those are my questions. Once again, thank you.
Thank you. And we should have more clarity on that funding by the next board meeting, because we could get different information from TEA as well as the federal government.
Well, and just to add to Karen's comment there, it won't be necessarily just the next board meeting. We'll be providing you updates every Friday as we receive additional information, so that you'll be able to make an informed and a good decision when we get to that point in June.
Ms. Heineman.
Karen, thank you for the in-depth report and explanation. It's complex. It's not as simple as it may seem. You think the federal government sent money to public schools, and we got the check and we took a picture and deposited it in the bank, and that's not how it's working. I did have a concern about it being one-time funding and us making long-term budget decisions, particularly when it comes to payroll and salaries, on one-time funding. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, but what I hear you say is we would use the one-time funding to offset our deficit and our fund balance, but you still feel that we could maintain these long-term payroll decisions?
Yeah, if we are able to decrease our deficit that we have this year, or maybe completely offset it for 2020, 2021 with those funds, and we get some of the other federal funds we're hoping to get, and we're able to do some of that into the next years with this money, then it would allow us to not tax, I guess you could say, the general fund so much, and give us more flexibility in future years for a while, associated with what Tom Jackson shared, is that how far can you go with that 3% raise? And we can go, hopefully we can go for a while with that, if we did like a 3% that he gave the example of.
Okay. That's a lot of ands and maybes and ifs, this and that. I just want to make sure I clarify a couple of questions too. One, the funding that the federal government sent to the state of Texas, and to Dr. Ogletree's point, it's sitting in an account somewhere in Austin, collecting interest, I'm assuming?
That I don't know the answer to, but I know we haven't received
Right.
the ESSER 2 or the ESSER 3 yet.
So someone is gaining the interest as well as skimming a percentage off the top. And now they're holding it all. And then I just want to clarify, we have to apply or apply for a grant to receive the money that was sent to our school district?
Yes. We have
Why do
to,
we have to
well, we
apply?
haven't gotten the money, well, which money are you talking about, to make sure,
I'm talking about
Julie?
any of it, Karen. I'm like, if the federal government sent money to Cypher-ISD, why do we have to apply?
We don't get
for a
it
grant?
until we apply for the grant, so we haven't gotten the money
Your
yet.
you get my
question,
point?
your
It's
question
good.
is, why do we have to ask and
For our
explain
own
our
own money.
money intended for us? That's $1 million question. It'd be a great question to ask the commissioner, your senators, your
That's
state
just
reps. It
incredibly
makes no
frustrating.
sense.
And some of that is you know, the federal government also, that
And
they are asking for accountability associated
Well,
with
that's
it.
because the state took our money the first time.
Yeah,
That's
and
why
they're
they
wanting,
put
exactly.
strings on it.
You're exactly right, because they're wanting to be sure it's spent properly.
Julie, my issue with it is, I've been a superintendent in big and very small school districts, and the needs in a small school district are different than in a big school district. So there should be a lot of flexibility available to districts.
One final question. Obviously, the stimulus funds were not just for public education. They were for other
You are correct.
public services or other services. Are there any other public service agencies or just services that are experiencing the same thing, where the state is holding their money and not distributing it?
My guess would be yes. If they, I mean, I would guess at that, since we are. I would assume the same thing. I've heard that from cities and counties, that has been the case. But I, you know, without digging into it, I couldn't tell you for sure, but I have heard that the cities and counties have been asking for their money.
Okay.
Could I sum it up one just little, not sum it up, I'm not saying no more questions, but what this really does, the ESSER money, if we receive it, it gets us to where we were pre-COVID. And if it fills in that gap so that we can get back to normal, then we feel like we can get back on those balanced budgets. You know, we talked about this last August. We were gonna run deficit budgets for a couple of years, even with federal aid. But this, if we get the money, this will get us back on track to keep our fund balance healthy, to offer a significant raise to our employees this year, and then hope by 22, 23, we've got 119,000 students back in school. We hope we have them this fall, but so it's kind of the money should get us back to normal, if that makes sense, pre-COVID.
It does. It does. It won't make a difference if we don't get it, but I'm hoping that someone will stop holding it hostage and actually send it where it needs to be. So, thank you.
Gilbert, you okay? You're crazy, or this is crazy? Okay. Just one question for you, Karen. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm looking that Cyfair is eligible for over $300 million. That's one of 1,100 school districts. Just exactly how much money does the state holding right now? Do you know?
Oh, gosh, I would have to pull that, let's see. I think I have it here. I've got that. They, because they have what's been allocated, and I'm just giving you out of the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 to Texas so far is I'm going to round it, $3 billion in ESSER 1, $5.5 billion in ESSER 2, and $12.4 billion in ESSER 3 money that has been allocated to the state of Texas so far.
That's almost $20 billion. And they're just sitting on it. I would encourage anybody that has inclined to want to talk to your legislator, I would give them a call and ask them what they're doing with that money, because that's a lot of money. I'm sorry, Gilbert. You're calling,
Karen, I'm
right?
sorry, yes. Great job. I
Thank
shouldn't
you.
just said something like that, though. So, great job. It's just, by all my mentors here, they're asking all the questions where I'm learning little by little from all of them and stuff. From Debbie's frustrations, to Tom's questions, to Don saying, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, to Dr. Zoe's passion, and Julie's, stating the obvious. You know what? It's crazy. So, and I appreciate your answers to all the questions above, and that binding folder you got there has a lot of answers. So thank you very much, Karen. So.
Mr. Jackson has one more question.
Yes.
And once again, like some other questions, this one doesn't have to be answered tonight, but we will have to answer this at some point in time. And I was hoping somebody else would ask this, but has not been asked yet. If you take a look at our population for 5 years, it says our population is at an equilibrium point. We're going to be asked to approve contracts today that are very significant, that suggests that we have, if not robust population growth, at least population growth. At some point in time, we have to address the disparity of the two different concepts. So I bring it up. It doesn't have to be answered tonight, but I do think that at some point in time we have to address that. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Did you have a statement you wanted to make or something?
No, all I would say is I appreciate all y'all's support. And of course, the other thing I would just like to say is thank my staff, because they have worked very, very hard on trying to get every ounce of federal funding. And without their hard work and constant looking at it, we wouldn't be where we are. So I have to thank my staff, Melissa McInerney and Amanda Bowles. They've worked very, very hard on that.
And I didn't state this in the board comments, but I see Paula's out there. And between you and Paula, bringing all of our kids to 1-to-1 ratio, that's something we've been working on since I've been on the board. And that was in my 16th year. So thank y'all very much for doing it. I know we just finished the last one, and that's not part of this discussion, but it is awesome that we got there.
We're
Thank you.
excited. Thank
And
you.
the fabulous Karen Fuller is out there
Yes.
also. I see her, and she's awesome. She helped make it happen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
7B, the administration will provide an oral report on teacher incentive allotment. Presenters are Teresa Hull and the Core Advisory Committee. Ms. Hull?
I think before Teresa starts this, just a little comment. You know, I'm concerned about the teacher incentive allotment, not because I'm do not want our teachers to receive more funding, but unfortunately, I'm old enough to have gone through career ladder, and what happens when you start down this path is all the cooperation and all the camaraderie can go out the window when you're fighting over an increase in pay. And it's been my contention all along that the money that's intended for this teacher incentive allotment ought to just be equally distributed across the state to our teachers, who deserve that. But having said that, the teacher incentive allotment is there, and we are going to need to participate because we don't want to get behind our neighbors, and certainly we don't want to deny at least a few of our teachers the opportunity to earn this. My problem with the whole system is if everybody could earn it, it would be great. But the way it's set up is just like it was set up 30 years ago. Not everybody's going to get the money. So if everybody can't get the money, it's not fair in my book. So having said that, Teresa, go.
No, I appreciate Dr. Henry sharing that, because I think it's important for all of our teachers and this board to know that really our philosophy and position on tying compensation to teacher student performance has not changed. However, we do think that this is something we need to pursue and see what kind of input and feedback we receive from all of our stakeholders in the development of a possible teacher designation program. So the teacher incentive allotment, you may recall, was a part of House Bill 3. And as Karen pointed out during her budget presentation, there were a number of funding allotments that were included in HB 3. And the teacher incentive allotment was one of those allotments that was made available to school districts to develop compensation systems that would recruit and retain highly effective teachers, and most importantly, at our most hard to staff campuses. If you want to go. So really our purpose tonight is to really just give you a brief overview of the teacher incentive allotment, kind of share with you what the requirements are for a school district to have a teacher incentive allotment program, and then kind of the roadmap that we have developed to kind of go through this process. Now, I do want to go back because we've received some questions. We've started the process of sharing this same presentation with all of our campuses. Teachers are starting to get all the details, and so we're starting to receive questions that we're responding to, and everybody's saying, why are we just now hearing about this? Because it passed in 2019. I do think it's important for you to know this passed, obviously, going into the 1920 school year. We spent the entire fall semester attending sessions. I think even Mr. Ryan may have attended one with me, even at Tassatasby, that fall of 2019. We went to Region 4 meetings. We pulled together, we started the process of learning about this and finding out what would be involved to develop a program. And we were prepared to provide this presentation to you in the spring of 2020. And obviously that just never happened because we were ready. Where we are now was where we wanted to be last year in starting this process. So it is a year delay, and understandably, we were focused on getting our campuses reopened and trying to get health and safety protocols in place. So now that we feel like we're kind of at a good place with COVID, we wanted to pull this back out and begin this process. So again, the goal with the teacher incentive allotment that the state has established was to recruit and retain highly effective teachers at traditional hard-to-staff schools. And it would provide funding to eligible teachers who earn designations. And that's what's important. The teacher does not earn the money, or the money does not come directly to them. Teachers generate an allotment for the district, and what the statute says is that allotment, then the compensation that that teacher generates must be spent on compensation at the campus where the teacher teaches, right? It doesn't say Ms. Smith generated $32,000, so Ms. Smith gets $32,000. It requires the district to develop a compensation plan on how we would spend that money that the teacher generated at the campus where the teacher teaches. So it gets pretty complex. So there are two pathways that teachers can generate an allotment. They can generate an allotment through earning a national board certification, which in my mind is probably the most objective process for a teacher to earn a designation. They can do that through going through it's a national standard, it's a national program. There are, I think, over 16 different content areas that are pretty generic at all the different levels. So really every teacher, every content area would be able to earn a national board certification. And then as a district, it's a pretty expensive process. I mean, it's not cheap. It's, I think, $1,900. But if a teacher goes through that process, earns that designation, then they would be eligible for reimbursement through the program. The second pathway for a teacher to generate an allotment for the district would be if we decide, and notice that term optional up there, that's key. If the district decides to develop an optional local teacher designation system. So that would require us to take a whole look at our teacher appraisal process. It would require us then to learn, we're required in that local designation system to also have student growth measures in place. And we would have to develop all of that. We would have to submit our plan to the state. They would have to approve it. Then we have to spend a year capturing data from teacher observations, student performance data, send that to Texas Tech and make certain that the results are reliable and valid. That regardless of who evaluates that teacher, regardless of where that teacher teaches, you would get the same results in your program and in your plan. So that's a very, very lengthy process. There are 3 levels of designation. The lowest level would be recognized, and that would be a national board certification. National board certification teachers or designations can only earn the recognized level. The second level is exemplary, and then the top level is masters. In order to earn the masters and exemplary level, you must have a local designation system. So I know that's a lot. Linda's going to go into, or Dr. Macias, I apologize, is going to go in and give you a little more details on the National Board Certification Program.
As Teresa said, with the National Board Certification Program, the teacher is working for her certification. She's not depending on anybody else. This is the teacher working towards that certification. It is known as a gold standard in teacher certifications, and there's actually 25 certificate areas. So there's many areas that teachers can work towards a certification. All candidates these teachers have to have at least 3 years of or more of successful teacher experience to be able to apply for the certification. And there's 4 components to the certification. 3 of them are portfolio-based, where they collect information and submit it, and one of them is actually a computer-based assessment. So I'm just going to walk you quickly through these 3 components. So the first one is a content knowledge computer-based assessment. The teacher takes this, goes to a testing site, and takes that test. And so she'll get an answer whether she was successful with this or not. Component 2 is about differentiation of instruction, and this is a portfolio-based entry where the teacher analyzes the differentiation that she's providing in the classroom. She gathers, analyzes student strengths and their needs, and then uses this information to be able to advance the instruction and the learning for the student. And then she has to complete a portfolio, but there's a huge writing component that goes with it, where the teacher would have to document everything, the whole process, and that's part of the submission process. Component 3 is teaching and practice and learning environment. This one is also a portfolio-based, but this one requires a video recording of the interaction between the teacher and the students. And so then this one, the teacher submits a video plus also a written analysis with commentaries about how he or she analyzes and reflects on the teaching with his or her students. And the component 4 is effective and reflective practitioner. This one is also portfolio-based with a written commentary. And this one is all about the teacher's content knowledge with assessments and how he or she uses assessments to be able to improve instruction. But it also refers to the teachers being a collaborative team player, a learner, collaboration with families and the community, and how he or she contributes to the student's growth and development. And as you heard some of these things, you probably heard some of the standards that are just standard for Cy-Fair, such as collaborative planning, assessments that are collaborative assessments, and DPMs. And so some of these areas that we're talking about, it's a standard practice for us, and we think we can help the teachers through this. We actually are working on establishing a cohort where teachers who want to pursue the certification can go through the cohort, we'll guide them, we'll assist them, and then they can apply for each part of the assessment. So we hope to be ready with that in August.
As Teresa alluded to earlier, if we as a district determine that we want to move forward with the district designation system, that is optional. And if we want to be approved for a local teacher designation system, we will need as a district to ensure that our teacher observation system and system for measuring student growth are both valid and reliable. A key component in determining a district designation system is the teacher observation process. In CFISD, during data collection years, CF test observations will be required for all teachers. In order for us to ensure that our appraisal system is valid and reliable, we must implement a system for calibration within and among campuses as part of the teacher incentive allotment application process. As a district, we must also analyze the correlation between teacher observation scores and student growth. Based on the data captured, principals and district leaders must also look at trends across campuses and identify the potential disparities in observation ratings. Coaching and supplemental supports must also be provided to appraisers to ensure inter-rater reliability measures for all raters.
The second component of the district designation system focuses on student growth, specifically looking at how much progress a student makes academically during a specific amount of time considering initial skill level. The focus is on the progress a student makes between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, not necessarily on whether a student meets a predetermined benchmark. Student growth may be measured using valid and reliable models such as pre-test, post-test, value added, student learning objectives, and/or portfolios. Regardless of the student growth measure used, the Texas Education Agency requires that the following standards must be met for a teacher to earn a distinction. To be recognized, 55% of students must meet or exceed expected growth. To be exemplary, 60% of students must meet or exceed expected growth. And to reach the master status, 70% of students must meet or exceed expected growth. In addition to teacher observation and student growth, which must be included in the designation system, districts may also include other factors in determining the teachers eligible to receive a designation, such as a student survey, teacher leadership responsibilities, teacher mentorship responsibilities, family surveys, and contributions to the broader school community.
There are three types of designations, as Ms. Hall indicated, a teacher can earn: master, exemplary, and recognized. Depending on the type of designation, districts can receive an additional $3,000 to $32,000 annually per designated teacher. Once the designation is earned by a teacher, it is valid for 5 years and will travel with the teacher. Therefore, if they left the district, it would travel with the teacher, or if somebody comes to our district, it would come with the teacher. At least 90% of the allotment the district receives must be spent on compensation of teachers employed at the campus where the designated teacher works. Districts may choose to request, also can choose to request a fee reimbursement that was indicated about the National Board certification. And we can actually request that through the teacher incentive allotment and request reimbursement for that beginning in, if somebody had taken their test in 2019 or later. The district will be reimbursed by the state, and then the district will then reimburse the teacher. The recognized designation can earn up to $3,000 to $9,000. The exemplary designation can earn $6,000 to $18,000, and then the recognized then the masters can receive $12,000 to $32,000. The allotment amount is determined by the Texas Education Agency and is dependent on the campus's socioeconomic need and rural status. And since none of CFISD's campuses are considered rural, a teacher will not be able to earn the highest funding level in each of these designations. However, high-needs campuses will generate a larger allotment. As mentioned on a previous slide, the designation will last for 5 years and travels with the teacher. Currently, the district has a small number of designated teachers that meet the criteria for the teacher incentive allotment. The district has, we have one teacher that has the National Board certification, and then we have 3 teachers that, we have 3 with the National Board certification and 1 teacher with a local designation. This one teacher with the local designation actually came to us from another district. So remember how I said the local designation follows them, and so that teacher came to our district with that designation. These teachers will receive the allotted funds by August 31st. In order to pay these eligible teachers, the board will be asked to consider approving the superintendent's recommendation to adjust the staff compensation plan as necessary to utilize funds available under the teacher incentive allotment later on in the board meeting. In order for a designated teacher to be eligible for the teacher incentive allotment, the teacher must be compensated for a credible year of service as a teacher. TEA defines a credible year of service as 90 days at 100% of a day, or 4.5 months or of a semester. In addition, they also could be 180 days at 50 to 99% of the day and compensated for employment. The teacher must also have a current SBEC teacher certification and be recorded as the teacher of record in the PEAMS winter roster submission, which is normally submitted in February of each year.
As we move toward closing out our time for this agenda item, we point the direction toward 2 councils, one that's established and one that we're in the process of establishing. Various district representatives from the superintendent's cabinet, along with various department leads from business and finance, human resources, and professional learning, make up the CFISD TIA Core Advisory. The Core Advisory Council is charged with engaging various stakeholders for the purpose of soliciting, gathering, and utilizing feedback to make best decisions regarding TIA. The Core Advisory Council is in the process of assembling a full advisory council. The makeup of the full advisory council will include both campus and district level reps, with the district's practice in mind of assigning principals to specific cluster groups as determined by a campus's socioeconomic status. Cluster groups will be the basis for campus representation. This will ensure a balance of Title I and non-Title I campuses. Additionally, district department representatives, one from each of the lists on the right, will ensure that departments central to the teacher incentive allotment process will be included in the makeup of the full advisory council. The charge of the full council is to support the district by serving to provide input and feedback throughout the process of designing the potential local option designation system that aligns with and is responsive to the parameters set out by the teacher incentive allotment that was created by the Texas legislature as part of House Bill 3, while maintaining the district's commitment to attract and retain highly effective teachers at traditionally hard-to-staff schools. The work of the full council is to inform the development or the potential development of the structure and to provide feedback concerning the process throughout the 2021-22 school year as the process unfolds across the district. With these critical groups in mind, the district's TIA roadmap begins this summer and continues throughout the next school year with planning and stakeholder engagement. Then the following school year, if the district moves toward the optional district designation system, would be our data collection year, and CF test observations would be required for all teachers. The next step is for the district to submit their data to Texas Tech University for data validation. TEA will then review the outcome of the data evaluation and the application to determine final approval. If approved, the district would receive funding beginning with the 2024-25 school year. As you have gathered, the TIA roadmap requires a deep commitment and willingness to engage in a process of garnering stakeholder engagement throughout the entire process. Board President Covey, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Henry, as you consider the information that we've shared with you this evening, are there any questions regarding the steps that the district is taking with regard to the teacher incentive allotment?
Thank you, Ms. Horner. Julie, do you have anything?
No questions. Thank you for the very thorough presentation. When this legislation was passed in 2019, it was confusing. So I think it took some time for us to digest and figure out how we could access these additional funds for our teachers. But as you can see, there's so many hoops and requirements. It's very complex, and it requires a lot of time by districts personnel. I will be surprised if all school districts take advantage or use this program because it's so time consuming. It requires a lot of people, time, and hours outside of what we normally are doing every day, right, to educate our kids. So just an observation.
Thank you, Ms. Heineman. Dr. O, do you have anything? Mr. Ryan?
Teresa, you started off, there was the one path and then the optional path. And the optional path is the one that has the most money tied to it with the masters and the correct. And so really, if we're going to do it, you want to do that because that generates the most funds. But in going through all those, have y'all looked at like what the cost is just to implement this program?
We've had that conversation. I know our team is just thinking, how are we going to do all of this? But we felt that, as we begin this process, we first just want to gauge what is the level of interest with our teachers of us developing that kind of system. I think it may be interesting to see that they may feel the best pathway and where we need to put all of our time, energy, and effort is supporting a national board certification program. But as to your point, it doesn't generate as much of an allotment as you can potentially earn under the local designation system. We have, just in doing our research, we have reached out to several surrounding districts that have started this process and a little farther along than we are. And they've hired outside consultants, people to kind of come in. I do think if we get an approved designation system, I do think it would require additional staff to manage that and do all of that. To what extent, we haven't really gotten that far in the process. But even the data capture year and even the process that we're going to have to go through in calibrating our appraisal system, as you may recall, in our current teacher appraisal process, there's going to be an added requirement if we go this direction, even on our campus administrators and all teachers, regardless of their interest in this program, because we would have to do an evaluation of all teachers in that data capture year. So that means all of our campus administrators right now, they're on a cycle where they don't evaluate every single teacher every single year. It just depends on the cycle that the teacher's on. But during that data capture year, it would require. So again, there's even some administrative burden and time that you can't really put a cost to, but that's added to that. It's a very complex process. I will point out the one teacher that we have hired, I think she's new to our district this year, that came with a designation. You may say, how did a district already get that far in the process? School districts were allowed to be in what they called cohort A and submit their application if they already had a kind of a performance pay plan in place. So then they already had it, so they just had to take their data and then submit it to Texas Tech for approval. And this is the first year the funds are actually flowing to those teachers. And the National Board Certification, we have a couple of teachers. I know one teacher in particular that Dr. Macias and her team have visited with. I mean, she's had a National Board Certification for many years. We have another teacher that we just realized this week. She's from California. So there's a lot of opportunity for anyone to earn a National Board Certification designation. Longer answer than you asked for, but
No. It's a lot to digest, actually.
Ms. Blackshear.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused and maybe a little dense tonight, but okay, the money that goes with the designation would go to the campus where the teacher is and have to be used for compensation, correct?
correct, 90%.
Then how do we decide who on that campus gets the money? How is it divided up? Is it going to be based on their, how they are rated, assessed by the administrators? Does it go across the board? Is it dependent upon what that campus decides? To me, it's very confusing, to be
That's a great
honest.
question, and that was something we were confused about as well when this first rolled out, Debbie, because I don't know if you recall, we had a DATE grant that provided additional compensation to teachers at some of our Title I campuses based on student performance, and it was directly tied to, at that time, was it tax testing at that time? I can't even remember the order of the test, but it was tied to that. And so the way that we set that grant up and providing that compensation was it was a team. Say in that tested area, it was the fourth grade writing team. If that fourth grade, if their results reached the level that was established in that grant, then the whole team got that allotment and they divided it out. So we were really initially thinking that way. So we were, and again, that is the foundation of our district, that team planning. It's our philosophy. We work together. We support each other. We were purposeful when we set it up that way, that we did not, back to what Dr. Henry was talking about initially, we didn't want to set up a system that creates this conflict about,
Right.
well, sure, you get this designation because you teach all of the GT students or the honor students, and then, you know, possibly have a teacher that's teaching some of the more challenging students not reach that level. So what they say in the way that you set this up, again, we're just getting started, that if you have a true, reliable, and valid appraisal process and student growth measure, it should not matter the population of students that you teach.
Right.
So that's the part in the calibration and then the validation of all of your data that we have to submit to the state. So back to your question on how do you decide, when we go through this process, the stakeholder engagement, we'll ask, what is your input on that? Do you think we should give the full 90% to the teacher that earned that designation? Do you think we should set up a system like the one I just described that we had with the DATE grant kind of process? There's lots of flexibility on how we can structure that. And then you keep in mind, we're talking a lot about teachers. Teachers generate the allotment for the district, but you also have support staff on that campus. You have instructional paras in the classroom. You have all kinds of people that contribute to the success of that campus and those students.
Right.
So it becomes a very complex process. But when we start this and we go through the stakeholder engagement, we'll be asking those questions.
Okay.
What we're going to present to you tonight when we get to that agenda item for the teachers that we currently have that have a designation, we are recommending, because it's such a small number, we don't have a local designation program, that we give the full 90% to those individual identified teachers.
Seems only fair.
Yeah.
Now, the designation goes with the teacher if she changes campuses or school districts, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then, and it's good for 5 years, correct?
Correct.
So then is it only paid out by the state annually?
Yes, and it can adjust each year.
Okay.
Because remember, it's based on the economic status of that campus,
Right.
which could change.
Could change, right.
Or like you said, it follows the teacher. I go from Dean to Salyards, very different student demographics.
Right.
So if the teacher transfers to another campus, even with our within our district, her allotment would be adjusted.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
No,
That
it's great
makes more
questions.
sense now.
Ms. Jackson?
I will look with excitement toward this, although I think everybody knows my prior views on this. Our board was graced with having a very strong board member who was a strong advocate of this approach. And in fact, at another school district, he helped design and implement it. I never identified the efficacy for the dollars expended, and there were massive dollars expended. This was at one of the very largest, if not the largest district here in the state. I do know the commissioner, when he was a school board member, advocated for this type of approach as well. Both of those school board members were convinced this approach worked. Both of them were convinced the data supported their conclusion. I was never able to see that data. I did speak to an individual, I believe her name was Dr. McClendon, who did a statistical analysis for a very large district as a consultant to determine if advanced degrees and if national certifications could have a positive correlation for student achievement, and there was not. Now, granted, that research is some 15 years old, and I'm confident that it probably has changed. We are talking about having a pre- and post-test. We do have a neighboring district, and I no longer remember the number, but I think it was double-digit millions spent on this pre and post testing. I'm sure that's going to be part of the information you come back to us with, is the additional testing. And you know me, I'm a statistical nut. I used to teach this at the for corporations, so I believe in the concept, but I don't always believe that it's a good fit where we might be able to see it. So does the current data support that national certifications result in enhanced academic attainment?
I have to be honest, I can't speak to that. I guess we could do an analysis and study the current teachers that have that designation in our district and look at the student performance. But Linda, I don't know if you have any information on the National Board certification, and that by achieving that, you are getting the result of improving student outcomes. I'm assuming that they believe that to be true, or the state may, wouldn't have selected that as an option. But I don't have any data to support that.
And I don't know that it makes sense to take a look at our district because our sample size is so small. You can make no conclusions when a sample size is that small. Mark, if I understand and read between the lines, one reason to do this is to maintain a competitive environment. Is my understanding correct in that area?
That's exactly correct.
Clearly, I think it has to be done with a tremendous amount of finesse. When I spoke on this years ago, I was concerned then, and I remain concerned now, that it goes against the very core of what this district is all about. This district is founded upon a team approach, and it works, and it is sustainable. And I see this as being one person to be elevated among all others. I'm confident y'all can find a way around this. And I'm confident that y'all can turn this into something positive. Clearly, the pre and post testing has to be a key component. But on an individual classroom, I don't know that that's necessarily meaningful. I always go back to what Robbie Sheridan's daughter taught me. She said, "It's not meaningful, and statistically I can prove it to you." Now, granted, that was only one principle, right? I also know that this is supposed to help retain teachers at hard-to-staff campuses. Is that correct?
Correct.
I seem to recall your predecessor, Pam Wells, making a presentation to us saying that when the DATE grant was employed, that at no campus was there statistical evidence to conclude that it was successful in retaining those teachers. I will say that I visited with each and every principal of those hard-to-staff campuses, and of those, some had a slightly different view, that they believed that additional dollars needed to be allocated to teachers just at that campus to be able to retain them. But their observation, I thought, was very clever. They said, but if that teacher left, and you gave the example, let's say leaving from Bain Elementary to go to Salyards, that those enhanced dollars should not follow because it needs to stay at the hard-to-staff campus. So it's not as if this is a new concept for this board or for y'all. So I know there's a number of pitfalls, and y'all are aware of those pitfalls. But I will have open ears. Thank you for introducing the topic, and Mark, I hear you loud and clear when you say that we need this as to remain competitive, particularly going forth. Being considered to be competitive will be significant for student attainment. Absolutely. Thank you.
Mrs. Arabia, do you have anything?
I agree with Mr. Jackson with approaching this with total finesse on this one here. It's some good things to get to, but we have to be quite careful how we get there and stuff. I think Mark also spoke at the beginning of this about being a team, and then Tom brought up some good previous discussions on it, though. There's a lot of good, but through a lot of finesse also. Totally agree with that word.
Thank you, sir. I just had one question, and everybody else asked what I was thinking, but I know the national board you said costs about $1,900. Will we be charging something locally, or will that be a free offer?
I'm sorry, repeat that. If on the national board certification?
Right, that was $1,900 you said? Right.
It's $1,900. I think there's a registration fee, and then there is a cost for each component, and I think it totals up to about $1,900.
Okay.
But we had that discussion. The state will not reimburse the school district until the teacher actually becomes certified and passes the test. So it would be costs that the teacher would be responsible for, and then once they earn the designation, they could be reimbursed for the full cost, plus earn the incentive amount.
But if you go with the local instead of the national, will we be charging anything?
No.
Okay.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
The local designation, no, there's no cost
Okay.
for the teacher.
Right. Dr. O?
How much input, if any, did we get from our teachers on this?
We haven't started the process yet.
So we will be?
Yes, yes. Okay. We wanted to, we've started by providing this same overview presentation to our principals, and they are sharing it with their teachers on the campus, and then we're sharing it with you. And then our next step will be to form that full advisory council that Dr. Horner talked about, with all those different representatives, including teachers. And then from there, we'll begin the process of going out and soliciting input and feedback with the different stakeholders and groups.
Okay.
Can we pull that slide back up that shows the people that are on the whole committee and not just the core committee?
Just go back again. Okay, right there. No. Okay, there's the core. That's the group that presented to you tonight, where we're just the ones trying to set up a structure that we move forward. And go to the next slide. So our next step is to form the full advisory council. You can see there's going to be 16 principals, 16 APs, DIs, associates, 18 elementary teachers, 14 secondary, and then our teacher organization representatives, and then the district representatives on the other side. And those areas were identified because of just feedback we need from them as we're possibly developing a system and how it may impact their different areas. And so that advisory council, once we go out, all stakeholders are really going to have the opportunity to give us some input and feedback through, different processes and procedures, which we've still got to develop. But it'll come back to this full advisory council to start kind of hammering out some details. Say on student growth measure, that's probably going to be one that's one of the most challenging processes. And so in really identifying and looking at what our student growth measures would be, what is the weighting that they have in the system and the process, and all of the various content areas. We're not, it could be that when we go out to our stakeholders, there is a recommendation that we only focus on identified campuses. It could be that there's a recommendation that We focus on all campuses, but only state-tested content areas. Some districts have set it up that way. We don't have to do all 92 campuses. We could do just a pilot school. We have that flexibility. But what we would have to understand, we go through all this work for one campus, a pilot campus, or a few campuses. If you want to expand it, you got to start the whole process and resubmit an application and data again. So that's the challenge with this.
To answer your question, Dr. O, teachers will be heavily involved in creating this system.
Well, I think that's going to really help for the buy-in, even though this is not a part of our culture, but when everyone has, participatory capital in it, I think it would help. Now, Teresa, did I understand this is for Title I campuses or any campus? And could we so designate that we're only going to use this at Title I campuses?
We could designate that.
Teresa, one final question, and you mentioned that there's other districts y'all have talked to that are ahead of us in this. What are they seeing? Are they seeing that this is something of benefit to their districts?
The districts we have talked to have not actually fully implemented it yet. We've talked with Tomball, we've talked to Klein, we've talked to A-Leaf. And they have just, really, our conversations with them have been around kind of their stakeholder engagement process and how they're structuring it. And so A-Leaf, I believe, is in cohort E, which is the one we are in. So they'll be submitting their application next April. Klein, because Klein Forest High School was already, they had a performance pay structure at a designated high school. Klein was a part of cohort A for that campus, and so we really wanted to talk to them. And so now they're in the next phase of setting up for additional campuses, and they really are limiting the content areas and campuses that would be eligible for the designation, and even the teachers. And then in talking with Tomball, I believe, are they in D, Dr. Macias? I think they're just ahead of us. We've participated, I've listened into some statewide sessions this year at Midwinter. There was one that TEA facilitated. They were smaller districts, Mr. Covey, and it was difficult to really kind of compare them to us and determine. They raved about it, but I think they're, again, a very different environment, a very different kind of school district, but they were much smaller.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President?
Oh.
Teresa, where would North Side and Northeast be in terms of cohorts on this?
I can look online. All of the districts in their designated cohort, if they've submitted an application or an intent, they call it not an application, but a letter of intent, that's posted online. I can look at that and let you know.
I only bring them up because in terms of socioeconomic demographics and size, they're most closely related to us.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. 7C, the administration will provide the status of a virtual academy for the 2021-2022 school year. Dr. Linda Macias is going to present in person, not virtually.
Good evening. As you have been hearing and probably reading and talking to legislators, you know that there have been several bills this session regarding virtual school and the opportunity for public schools like us to be able to provide a virtual program or school for the 2021-22 school year. So this evening, I will be sharing with you, whoops, I said I was going to click myself. There we go. This evening, I'll be sharing with you our proposed plan to offer a tuition-free, full-time virtual school in the 21-22 school year, pending action by the Texas legislator during this session, and including full funding for virtual education. So I just want to make sure that we're clear that this is a proposed plan if full funding is approved and virtual education for a school like Cypher is also approved. So you have heard us also talk numerous times, and you've heard Dr. Henry share, that the best instruction and learning environment for our students is face-to-face instruction with their teachers in the classroom. However, we do know that there are some students who have performed well in our current online virtual environment, Connect CFISD, and these are the candidates that possibly may apply for the CFISD virtual school. Again, I want to stress, this is a proposed plan in case this is approved by the legislature. So just to share a little bit about what our structure would look like, this would be a district campus. So it would be an identified campus that we're talking about. It would have its own TA ID number. The grades that would be served in the CFISD virtual school would be 4th through 12th grade. There would be entry criteria to be able to qualify for the virtual school. The students would have access to our CFISD core curriculum, so they would receive a rigorous, high-quality curriculum, that standard that we have in Cypher, but there would be limited opportunities for the electives, dual credit, AP, CT pathways. They would be there for them, but they would be limited. It would be scheduled synchronous instruction, and there would be an application process, and we would ask parents to commit to 1 year, or the school year, for this virtual school. It wouldn't be going back and forth. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. So our intention is to launch a successful virtual school. So this is not CFISD Connect. This is not a virtual program that is at the school like we have right now. This is not an opportunity for kids to be able to go virtual for a few days or for a week or for 2 weeks. This is an actual school. They would be enrolled in this actual school. So as I just shared, it is a stand-alone campus. Students enroll in the CFISD virtual school. It would have its own separate accountability system. Students would be required, as they are right now, to participate in the state assessments.
Just a clarification, it'll have its own rating, not system.
Yes, I'm sorry, did I say system? Yeah. I'm sorry, yes, I have rating right here written down. It would have its own accountability rating. Again, the state assessments would have to be taken. It would have its own GPA and class ranking, its own graduation class, and all virtual and extracurricular activities would happen in that manner, in a virtual manner. There would be clubs and organizations that they could participate in. Remember, they would be enrolled in an actual school. So again, 4th through 12th grade, we visited with our elementary cluster, and they felt comfortable with 4th and 12th grade. Nothing lower than that. And you all have heard before that the primary grades, reading in 3rd grade, that is the standard. That is what the research says is setting students up for success. So 4th and 5th grade is what they felt comfortable with. Teachers would be delivering instruction in peer classes. You have heard Dr. Henry say now over and over again that blended is dead. So on July 3rd, we're going to bury it. It is dead. And so this would be pure virtual classes. They will be scheduled instruction in a 2-way real time with live instruction, with that teacher delivering that live instruction. There would be academic support, just like we provide kids who struggle. And then here again, as I shared, it would be a one-year commitment. And so if for any reason our students would have to return to the home campus, because we want to make sure they're being successful, then they would return back to the campus to finish out the year. It wouldn't be a going back and forth. And the teacher work site for the CFISD virtual school would be the Broadbent Center. So that's where we would have our teachers housed. This is that criteria that I spoke about, that eligibility criteria. So again, it's for students in 4th through 12th grade. The class average of 80 or better is going to be required in all the coursework. And then attendance, 90% or higher, is important as well. So those are the main eligibility criteria that we would be looking at. But then we would be looking at other just input, prior academic success in the learning environment, behavior, discipline. And then there would also be an opportunity for students who are struggling. There might be a probation phase, or if they are not being successful, then they would be exited to the school that they are zoned to. So we wouldn't be leaving them there for them to continue struggling and possibly failing. At the elementary levels, it's our standard courses that we offer. PE would be virtual as well, but we would also permit our elementary students to do off-campus PE. There is a required by law of minutes for PEs, 135 minutes every 2 weeks, so that would be a standard. And then, of course, they would have some of the fine arts, but it would all be virtual. In middle school, just quickly, I just wanted to show you that the core courses would be there available to our students, so both whether it's on level, K level, or Horizons. We would have some CT opportunities for them, fine arts opportunities, and some other electives, but notice that they are limited. They are limited in nature. High school, again, the core courses are available to them. You're going to see in a little bit that we do have some identified foundation courses that certainly that they would pursue an endorsement. So these courses would allow them to be able to earn these endorsements. But you can see again, all the different levels are available to our students, even some academic electives for them. We have LOAT courses, we have some fine arts courses, and then P and health. But again, they are limited in what we are able to offer. We have 2 career paths that we're starting with, business and management and multi-arts, and the courses that are provided there also lead to certifications. This is also important because remember, this will have its own accountability rating. These are the endorsements that would be available in the CFISD virtual school: multidisciplinary, arts and humanities, and business and industry. They would have opportunities for advanced placement, but there are courses that are advanced, that are AP courses, that have a corresponding assessment they can take at home. Those are the ones that would be available in the virtual school. And we have the list for 2021. They usually change a little bit, so it'll be a little bit different, but it's only those that have the corresponding home digital administration of the AP exam. Dual credit, they will have opportunities for dual credit, but again, in a limited fashion as well. We have a program with Lone Star College, that's a learning support model that we can offer dual credit courses. Or the student could also choose to have early release or come in later and decide to take a course at the actual Lone Star College facility or on a Saturday. And then, as I said, extracurricular activities would be available to our students, but it would be through virtual clubs or other virtual organizations. So what are our next steps? On Wednesday, parents can go to our Cypher website and they will see information about the Cypher ISD virtual school. Again, everything that they're going to see there is all pending the legislative outcome. One of the things that they'll find there is this item, is my student ready for virtual learning. It is actually an opportunity for parents to reflect with their students on their readiness for virtual learning and the opportunity for them to be successful. So questions such as, my child would be described as someone who has good organizational skills and complete assignments ahead of time, rarely, sometimes, or most of the time. or my child is motivated and a self-directed learner, or when my child encounters a problem during class or with homework, he or she knows how to review directions, check his or her work, and ask for support. Students need to have certain skills to be able to be successful in an online environment. And so we're providing this for our parents. If they can answer 5 or more to most of the time, then possibly this is a possible candidate for to apply for the CFISD virtual school. On the website, parents will find the CFISD virtual school handbook and course catalog, an FAQ there as well, and the application. And the application process will include, again, enrolled in a CFISD or live within the boundaries of CFISD. We have students who are not attending or enrolled in our schools but live within our boundaries. They certainly would be able to apply for the CFISD virtual school. The entry criteria will be there, student responsibilities and commitment, and also parent responsibilities. We are opening the window on May 12th through June 1st for parents to apply for this. And this is, again, we need to have an idea what we're talking about in students so that we can prepare for this, but it is all pending the outcome of the legislative session. If the session ends and we're not allowed to have virtual instruction or the complete funding, then we will not be able to provide this opportunity. You will also see in the next week or two a posting for a CFISD virtual school principal/dean. So this person would be leading the virtual school, but also serve as a dean of instruction, a DI, to be able to support students. And then also advertising for teachers. We have great teachers who, you've heard Dr. Andrews say, have done a great job with our virtual school. So some of them may want to apply for this, and then we're gonna look to see what other staff that we might need, depending on the number of students that actually apply for the CFISD virtual school.
And just to add to that point, obviously, let's just say at Bridgeland, we have 100 kids that want to go virtual. Teachers from Bridgeland they may not come from that school, but there'll be fewer allocated teachers to that school because of a decrease in the number of students. So we're not asking for more teachers at this time. They just may be assigned to virtual, but they'll have that option. So
yes, they will have that option. So this concludes the presentation for our proposed CFISD virtual school if the legislature approves full funding and the opportunity to do this.
Ms. Heineman.
Dr. Macias, I know we've heard from some parents that their students did thrive working at home, so I appreciate that we're looking to provide a solution to those parents who feel that their students did learn well at home, although that was a small number, but there were some kiddos that did do well at school. Do we have an idea of the numbers? I mean, I know we did a survey earlier in the school year, but do we feel like it's sustainable? Is there a break-even point in terms of number of students?
I don't know the number of students. Risa, do you have that information? Who said that they would?
I don't have that with me. But what we heard from the campuses that parents really kind of misunderstood those questions and may not be a really good indicator of whether or not they want virtual for next year.
And we have so many of our kids that have not come back that we hope that they will continue in that format with us.
Well, we'd rather they stay with us online versus going to another provider. Right, especially one that charges them money or doesn't provide the same level, high standards that we have.
Virtual education, and I'm not going to talk about in Cy-Fair, but if you look at the statistics of K-12 and some of these folks that are providing virtual, the graduation rate is minuscule.
Right.
It's not very successful.
So we're hoping that for our kiddos, our students who participate in the Cypher ISD virtual school, if we have it, we would obviously work very hard to make sure they're successful, but we're not anticipating that being a large number of students.
Well, we hope not. We still think, the statement I always say is we can provide schooling for you virtually, but if you want a real education, it needs to be in person for most students.
Right, right.
And then remember, Ms. Edmonds, I shared that everything is virtual. They will complete all coursework in a virtual environment.
Right.
And they will be enrolled in this school, so they won't be enrolled at any of our brick and mortar schools. They
Right.
will actually be enrolled in the school, and any activities they do will be associated with that, with the virtual school.
Right. And there's no special education, correct?
Special education students,
Will be on-
bilingual ESL students can certainly apply to the virtual school. We have to make sure that we're gonna be able to meet the needs that are set out in their IEPs, and then the art committee will also provide guidance for that.
Okay. So we may or may not be able to, they may or may not be able to participate in the virtual, it'd be a virtual school student. They may need to come to a brick and mortar school to get their services.
That just depends on the needs
The
of the
student.
student.
I think the difference, Julie, between us and maybe some of these virtual schools for profit is we're going to be very discerning, and if you cannot be successful, we're not going to accept you. Whereas these for-profit virtual schools, they just see a price tag on
Right,
a
right.
student's head.
Right. My only other concern has to do with the application window, because the legislative session doesn't end until the end of May. So parents may be applying, but it may not even be an option. So I'm just a little concerned about that.
And we were also concerned about that, but the only way for us to know the number of possible teachers that we may need is to go ahead and have the application window open.
Okay.
And then if, you know, we don't know where our teachers are gonna be coming from. We don't know how many we will need. We don't know where they're gonna be coming from, but we also need to have, our campuses have the opportunity to rehire some of those positions if they need to be rehired. And then we feel we need to get moving if we're going to be able to start going full force on July 1, if it is approved, and be ready by August.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Ms. Sarabia?
Yes, Linda, what are our numbers right now at the campuses, face-to-face?
I have that.
Do we have that, Teresa?
Percentage, it's 74%.
74 still?
Uh-huh.
At
That's
this
the
time?
last number I saw. Has that gone up, Teresa? No, I think I saw that today.
Okay, I was just wondering if that would
That is
give.
correct, Dr. Hendry.
I was just wondering if that would give any kind of revelation to what we might expect.
Yeah, I think you'll see our elementary numbers are a little higher. I think they may be at like 79%. Secondary is a little lower. It went down, but that's because of our seniors. A lot of the seniors, once they kind of finished up their seasons or their activities, little senioritis has kicked in, and so I think that's the shift, not that I don't feel safe or I want to have virtual school.
Right. Thank you for those numbers. And Linda, nice presentation to a proposed idea. Thank you.
So I want to make sure we're clear.
Ms. Blacksher?
Linda, and just to clarify, as I understand it for our viewing audience, since it is a standalone campus, it will not be like Cypher ISD Connect, in that students would not be able to participate in sports, i.e. football, volleyball, basketball, correct?
They would only participate in
In what?
virtual activities, virtual organizations.
I just want to make sure that is clear. And then I guess my second question is, have we thought through about, there may be some parents who still, in August, have concerns about the health and well-being of their students, say they have an asthmatic child and they're concerned still about them returning to the classroom, but they may not meet the criteria maybe as far as grades or attendance.
I'm gonna ask maybe Teresa to help me with that one, but I will share with you, Ms. Blacksher, just a reminder that this is not an opportunity for kids to come in and out. This is a school, so it's just like if they were enrolled at Sampson Elementary. We would have to provide opportunities to support the student. I will also tell you that with Schoology. We didn't just buy Schoology to get us through this transition. We have been working through Schoology, and it's going to provide us opportunities to continue supporting our kids, to be able to push information out, to push resources out when our students are absent, or maybe even push out some videos. So there'll be opportunities, but it won't be the virtual environment.
No, I understand that it's not in and out, and I totally agree with that.
Mr. Jackson.
I understand the question that Debbie asked as well as the answer that you gave her. If I understand the situation correctly, there's actually a couple of school districts, maybe more than a couple, that already have something like a virtual school going. Is my understanding correct?
That is correct. They
That
were
were
grandfathered
grandfathered?
in some years ago.
For those, is the participation in or extracurricular activities virtual? Or do they participate after school as you would ordinarily?
So some of the ones that you've been talking about, Heather Bergman has taken the lead actually with us to do some research. But what we have found is like the Huntsville one, or what is it, I always get it around Hollis? Yes, they are a complete virtual school. They have students from all over that attend the virtual school. So they are completely in a virtual manner.
And when I went through Leadership TASB, that's what we found out at that time. So, but is there anything to prevent a district from saying you can be in this virtual school, but you can still participate in after-school activities?
We don't know what's going to be passed.
Yeah,
I was
gonna say, there's been no legislation passed yet, so we don't know what will be in there. And as you know, just as they said, there's been just a very few schools that are even allowed to do virtual now, other than the commissioner allowing us to this year. But that goes out the window June 3rd.
I will share with you though, Mr. Jackson, that we visited with our high school COVID principals committee, and they support a plan like this versus students coming and going back and forth to the campus.
Very good. So it has alternative uses as well. Thank you.
Dr. Ogletree.
My thought was on the extracurricular activities. Let's say FFA. If you have a student who is good virtually but wants to also participate in that, why shouldn't they be allowed to?
I think it's all going to end up being, Dr. O, in the way the bill, if there is a bill that's passed and what it says. These students would be enrolled in a school, and the school is the virtual school. They wouldn't be enrolled at Cypher High School, where they come to campus and do the ag program, or they wouldn't be enrolled in Richland High School. They would be enrolled in the virtual school, and there are other opportunities for extracurricular activities, but not the ag. That is at the brick and mortar school.
Anyone else have questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Macias. Appreciate it. Seven D, the administration will provide a report on cooperative purchasing fees paid by the district for 2019-2020 fiscal year. Questions only for Mr. Bill Powell, our cleaner of the microphone. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Powell? No? Okay. The board will now review and discuss the following consensus action items. Mr. French, would you like for us to move you up a little bit? I mean, you've been here all night. I'm sure you're okay. Can we?
Well, we also got PDK here too.
All right, shall we?
Once you approve the minutes and then go
All right, let's do the minutes. Okay. The board will consider approving the minutes of the April 8, 2021 regular board meeting. If any board member wishes to remove this item for further discussion, please do so at this time. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consensus item as recommended or amended.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consensus item as recommended and or amended.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. Any questions? All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to 9K. The board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. Presenter is Matt Morgan, 9K1, 2019 Middle School number 20, 9K2, 2020 Leonard Bronigan Center, CTE additions, 9K3, 2020 Transportation Center number 6 Detention Basin and Pump Station. Are there any questions? Mr. Jackson. Mr. Morgan. Sound her on up here.
I have two standard questions. So if you would, briefly touch on any floodplain concerns, any retention or detention pond concerns, and if there are any, how are they being addressed? And then secondly, as it relates to my standard virus question, what enhancements have we adopted as it relates to quality of air and quality of water at the facilities that we're talking about?
Yes, sir. We don't have any detention or retention concerns. As far as Middle School 20, Bridgeland, the Bridgeland site is part of the regional detention facility. We had no flooding issues during Harvey with either Bridgeland High School or Wells Elementary. As far as Leonard Bronigan Center, again, no detention or retention issues. And if you remember, Matsky at that time was actually the site for Moore Elementary. As far as indoor air quality, at Middle School 20, we are following ASHRAE 62.1 IEQ, fresh air and fresh air changes. And for this facility, that means that we will have 100% air change in the classrooms every 8 minutes or more. So we're also doing MER 13 filters as recommended by the CDC.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board award these construction contracts to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Who said, oh, Gilbert? Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. 9L, the board will consider approving and authorizing the superintendent or designee to enter into miscellaneous professional service contracts related to the following project. 9L1, 2019 Middle School number 20. Do we have any questions for Mr. Morgan? None. May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve and authorize the superintendent or designee to enter into the miscellaneous professional service contracts for the listed project up to the recommended amounts.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended? Oh,
Hey, come on, man.
I did that. I'm sorry. How late is it? Okay.
You want our hands up.
All in favor, raise your right hand. That is unanimous. Good Lord. 9M, the board will consider approving a change order to the construction contract with ICI Construction Incorporated for additional work at the CFISD Exhibit Center. Are there any questions for Mr. Morgan? Deb, do you have some?
No, mm-mm.
No, okay. Then may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
I move that the board approve a change order to the construction contract with ICI Construction, Inc. for the additional work at the CFISD Exhibit Center and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents to complete the additional work.
Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. If y'all want to skip out, I'm sure the rest of the evening is going to be titillating, so. Action item 9A, the board will consider nominations for Region 4, Position F, Large District Member seat on the TASB Board of Directors. Presenter is Mr. Ryan.
I nominate Bob Covey for re-election to the Region 4 Position F seat on the TASB Board of Directors. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Give me hey, I second my motion. Go with it. Somebody second it. Second. Okay.
Thank you.
Bob, do you want to say anything? I mean,
No,
you're doing great. You're doing great. You represent us well. I think you're amazing. I mean, you had that snafu a couple of agendas ago, but other than that, you're killing it. You're killing it.
I'm good until about 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take your meds. All in favor?
All in favor.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
There we go.
And I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for the support. 9B, the board will consider approving the budget amendments for the period of January the 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2021. Are there any questions? Anybody have anything for Ms. Smith? Nope. May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr.
President, I
I
move that the board approve the budget amendments for the period of January 1, 2021 through March 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second?
Second.
Is that you, Mr. Jackson? Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. 9C, the board will consider approving the superintendent's recommendation to adjust the compensation reflected in the district's compensation plan as necessary to utilize funds available under the teacher incentive allotment. Were you having a presentation, or are we just voting on this now?
Well, that was your presentation.
That was it. All right, may I have, are there any questions? I'm sorry. Then, may I have a motion?
All
I
right.
move that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent's recommendation to adjust the compensation reflected in the district's compensation plan as necessary to utilize funds available under the teacher incentive allotment.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9D, the board will consider approving the request for the Texas Education Agency waiver for the 2021-2022 school year. Anyone have any questions for Dr. Macias? And if hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the request for Texas Education Agency waiver to allow the district to train staff on various educational strategies designed to improve student performance in lieu of student instruction for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Heineman. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Yeah.
Unanimous, thank you. 9E, the board will consider approving a resolution to suspend portions of FMH local for the 2020-2021 and 2021-2022 school years. Anyone have any questions for Dr. Macias? Yes, sir, Mr. Jackson.
So Linda, on this, I think the intent is for seniors to participate in the ceremonies, but briefly describe what services we will offer for those who do not meet all requirements on a look-back basis. Plus, is it true that regardless of their test score retest opportunities will not be provided, or will they?
So you are correct, Mr. Jackson. This is providing students who have completed their course requirement for graduation, but may have not passed all of the OCs to be able to participate in the graduation ceremony. There is a process called the IGC, the Individual Graduation Plan, that is in place for students, for seniors who have not completed all 5 required end-of-course exams. And if they just need 2, if they're lacking 2 of them, then a committee can convene, may convene and may evaluate the student's knowledge of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for those areas, and then may decide to go ahead and permit them to earn graduation status.
But this would be done on a look-back basis, because as I understand it, we won't have all test results in on a timely basis?
Well, we won't, if there are any retests, we will not have them in a timely basis for graduation purposes. But they still, to be able to graduate, to actually formally earn a diploma, they would either have to have met all their coursework and have all their end-of-course assessments that are required, or have all their coursework and only be lacking 2 of the end-of-course assessments, and then the IGC can convene and provide that opportunity.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve a resolution to suspend portions of FMH local for the 2020-2021 and 2021-2022 school years.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. 9F, the board will consider approving a resolution to suspend portions of EIE local for the 2020-2021 school year only. Are there any questions for Dr. Macias? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve a resolution to suspend portions of EIE local for the 2020-2021 school year only.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. The 9G, the board will consider approving the administration's recommendation for the 2021-2022 open/closed campus designation for student transfers. Are there any questions for Ms. Hall or Ms.? Oh, it did say brief.
It'll be brief
presentation.
too, I promise.
I'm sorry. Christy, I'm sorry about that.
No, hey, no problem. I was looking for the clicker. Someone have a clicker? Oh. Evening. What a year. What a night. Based on enrollment projections and building capacities, the Office of Boundaries, Projections, and Planning would like to share recommendations for the campuses that will be open for the 2021-2022 school year. Remember, our goal is to provide as many options as possible with the constraints of capacities and to accommodate student and parent preferences. Before I share the list, I want to talk about a few of the policies that we have regarding open, closed, and transfer policies. Just refresh your memory on these. Okay. Each year, the board's asked to approve the recommendations for the campuses. Once identified as an open campus, Student Services uses a tiered process with 3 different levels. Without reading these to you, Tier 1 is referring to a school that is open to all CFISD residents and employees. These are called Tier 1 campuses. Number 2 is referring to campuses that will be closed to all new transfers, but will be available to CFISD employees only. Those are called Tier 2 campuses. And number 3 is referring to campuses that will be closed to all new transfers, but will be only available to CFIC employees who are assigned to a facility or building located within the exact same attendance zone of that school that's requested. In summary, once approved by the board, all schools and campuses will be categorized as a Tier 1, a Tier 2, or a Tier 3 campus. If the board approves the list of open campuses, Student Services will be calculating the number of open spots available for each campus based on the tier system. The timeline provided by Student Services is as follows. If the board approves the list, Student Services will advertise the campuses that are open starting tomorrow, May 11th, Tuesday, May 11th. Registrars and Student Services will start accepting applications after tomorrow as well. And then Tuesday, June 1st will be the deadline to apply. Student Services will be getting open campus and transfer information out in a variety of ways, as you can see by the list provided. District website, school newsletters, connections to the community, building campus bulletin boards, emails distributed to employees without district email addresses, employee connection, inside Cypress-Fairbanks ISD, and school messenger. The transfer applications are available at the registrar's office on all campuses or on the district website at www.cfisd.net. A transfer application submitted to the campus registrar to the student center, student transfer at cfisd.net by Tuesday, June 1st. Okay, the 21-22 recommendation, we have 7 high schools, 13 middle, and 37 elementary. That we recommend to be open for the 21-22 school year. That's 57 campuses. Last year was 36, so 21 more options for this year. So the campuses for next year are, I'll read those to you. Last year I was told, you want me to read them all? No, we're good. Okay, good. I just following last year's. Okay, so do y'all have any questions?
Any questions? If not, I'm sorry.
They, like for the transportation's not provided on the transfers.
It is not.
I just want to make sure that
There's
our
a little
parents know that.
elementary exception, but that has to do with daycares, but that is not provided for a request for transfer.
Okay.
Yes, Gilbert?
Going back to our last regular school calendar, I guess 2019, the beginning of the fall, right? Do we have particular numbers to see that what those numbers could possibly be? Numbers of people, of kids actually transferring to a particular school and stuff.
As far as the 2021 school year, I'm not sure how many students transferred.
2019.
19?
You know,
19, 20?
It really varies. There's some campuses that you will see a higher number of requests for transfers. I mean, we can get you that data. And you're wanting to know how many students or how many transfer requests were received at each campus in 2019.
Since I'm new to this process, I would kind of like to have a bearing. Okay, look at the numbers that we have this year. Our last calendar year that we went without the pandemic starting, instead of 2019, what our numbers look like and what they possibly would look like when we come back in August and September and stuff, just to relate the numbers.
Sure. Okay. We can get those numbers. Student Services will have those for 19-20 school year.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, Gilbert, that I don't remember if we opened a school that year, but if you open a school, then sometimes the kids don't want to go to that school, so they ask to transfer back to wherever they are. So, but I don't remember if there was one in 2019. I think Rowe was the last one, wasn't it?
Yes, and I understand. I just kind of want to see some numbers to put everything in perspective for myself, who
I'll
hasn't been
merge them
around
together.
that long
Okay.
yet, so.
Okay, well, Christie, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the non-consent
Mr.
item as
President?
recommended? Or what? Oh, you had one? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Tom.
sir. You know, I think everybody on the board knows this, but for our viewers, particularly the empty households, do we have Title I and non-Title I opportunities at each level, i.e. elementary, middle, and high school?
Yes. We
Done.
do.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the 2021-2022 open and closed campus designations for student transfers.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Gilbert. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9H, the board will consider approving the instructional materials allotment and TEAC certification for 2021-2022. Questions only. Does anyone have any questions for Christie?
Well, actually, Mr. President, the standard question I have always goes to the superintendent. Dr. Henry, you can in fact certify to us that the instructional materials allotment has been used only for expenses as permitted or allowed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Miss-
I'll move that the board approve the instructional materials allotment to and TEKS certification for 2021-2022.
Thank you, Mr. Arabia. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. 9I, the board will consider approving the cost-sharing agreement for the installation of a signal light. Questions only for Roy Sprague or Matt Morgan. Any questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board approve a cost-sharing agreement for the installation of a single signal light and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms of the agreement and execute all necessary documents.
Thank you, Ms. Heineman. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. May I, all in favor, raise your right hand. Forgetting where I am. 9J, the board will consider, oh, that was unanimous. 9J, the board will consider awarding bids and contracts and are authorizing purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item. 9J1, ambulance and EMT services. 9J2, bank depository services, request for proposal. 9J3, building materials and general MRO supplies. 9J4, computer devices, components and services. 9J5, new adoptions for advanced placement, U.S. history and dual credit sociology. 9J6, property insurance renewal. Do I have any questions? Mr. Jackson.
This would be on item 9J4, computer devices, components and services. Estimated award $38.9 million. If you would, Paula, please briefly explain what this is for. Is it for replacement? Is it for part of the one-to-one allocation? Does it involve student technology or teacher technology or both? Does it pertain to new school technology? Those sorts of questions to be answered.
Yes, Mr. Jackson. The purpose of this RFP is to address our standard 5-year replacement cycle for a variety of endpoint devices. This expenditure is separate from our LTE one-to-one program. The endpoint devices included in this purchase will be for replacements for teacher tool devices, administrative devices, ruggedized devices for our police departments, a limited number of Windows devices for our campuses, specialty high-end devices for CTE classrooms, which include computer science, drafting, digital art, photography, and endpoint technology for new sites. Mr. Jackson and President Covey, you referenced the LTE one-to-one program. I'd like to elaborate a little bit on that right now. On April 27th, 2021, we completed our final elementary campus distribution, and now all campuses are fully one-to-one. To date, we have 115,774 Chromebook devices distributed and 14,373 hotspots distributed. One item worth noting regarding the 14,000 hotspots, we have siblings numbering 13,838 that are also using these devices, for a total of 28,211 students using our hotspots. Although the board approved the purchase of 79,500 one-to-one Chromebook devices in July, this purchase did not accommodate our full student population. We plan to seek board approval for the purchase of additional Chromebooks for our one-to-one program while introducing a 5-year replacement cycle for our Chromebooks during a future board meeting, similar to tonight's proposal for our endpoint devices.
Thank you for a very thorough answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended?
Mr. President, I move that the board award bids and contracts and authorize purchase orders as recommended in the posted agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Now we will, before we move on to the superintendent's briefing portion of the agenda, we have an addendum to the May 2021 agenda. Addendum, the board will consider approving the granting of a water meter easement to Barker Cypress Municipal Utility District for water service to Leader Elementary School and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. We have any questions for Mr. Morgan? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the non-consent item as recommended or amended? Wake up.
So moved.
All right, we got two so moves, so, okay, thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. We will now proceed to the superintendent's briefing portion of the agenda. Dr. Henry.
Before I start that, Mr. Covey, I have a question for Mr. Morgan.
Sure, help yourself.
How do you pronounce our board president's name? Okay, just checking. We've been working on that. Okay. Superintendent's Fun Run was held on Saturday, May 1st. It was our 8th one. Despite us running together from wherever, which was a virtual event, we were able to raise $120,000 to benefit Cy-Fair Educational Foundation.
That's awesome.
Congratulations to our top participating campus, Cypress Ranch High School, Hamilton Middle School, Woodard Elementary School, and the Carpenter Center. Our top department was curriculum and instruction and accountability. So we really appreciate all the participation. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate the local businesses and the sponsors that have stuck with us the last 2 years. And next year we're going to have an in-person event, and it's going to be the biggest and best ever. May 3rd through 7th was Teacher Appreciation Week, a time to recognize our educators who have gone above and beyond to serve CFISD students. Additionally, on May 12th, we will celebrate National School Nurse Day. This year, we wanted to pay a special tribute to all CFISD staff who made this school year possible. And we have a special video called Opportunity for All Because of You. And I hope you all had a chance to see that. It was really well done by our communications department. For the second straight year, CFISD graduation ceremonies will be held outdoors at Cy-Fair FCU Stadium, which is at the Berry Center. The graduations are scheduled to be between May 27th and June 4th. Visit the CFISD website for a full graduation schedule and live stream information. 4 years after the program launched, the inaugural class of CFISD College Academy students will graduate high school along with a 2-year associate's degree. The 85 Cypress Lakes High School seniors have earned enough credits to graduate from Lone Star College Cy-Fair on May 14th and from Cypress Lakes on May 29th. And as an added bonus, we're going to have the Lone Star College president at our graduation for Cy Lakes to congratulate our dual graduates. As a reminder, Monday, May 31st will be a student and staff holiday in observance of Memorial Day. Last day of the 2020-2021 school year is Thursday, June 3rd. The summer break is scheduled for June 4th through August 20th, and I hope everyone has a safe and restful vacation. CFISD's summer school offerings are expanded for every level, high school, middle school, and elementary in 2021. Visit our website for a detailed listing and information on how to register. And just a reminder, it's free this year for all students. Some of you'd like to get a little bit ahead, or some of you'd like to redo a course or catch up. The opportunity will be this summer. Beginning June 11th through July 30th, all district facilities and campuses will be closed on Fridays. Employees will work 10-hour days, Monday through Thursday. So we hope that you'll put that on your calendar, and we'll be there late every afternoon to help you Monday through Thursday if you need us. So, hope everybody has a great evening, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Covey.
Thank everybody for staying. Y'all are wonderful. We are now adjourned. Thank you.